Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The quorum bell is currently on a ring mode at the Senate this morning, following the directives by the Speaker, Honorable Amason Jeffrey Kingi, that the Sergeant at Arms during the quorum bell for 10 minutes to give some sort of leeway for senators to make their way into the chamber this morning to necessitate the quoration of the House to about 15 senators, according to the standing orders of the House, for the House to commence business this morning, which is the hearing and determination of the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Away from that, allow me to take you through some of the evidence and documents that have been tabled before the Senate for consideration. The National Assembly has forwarded the following documents to support their case. The documents include the impeachment motion and witness affidavits, the exhibits of the impeachment motion, the public participation report, the House proceedings, the Deputy President's response in regards to the motion to kick him out of office, and an affidavit by Peterson Njomo Mushira, among others, as the support for their case against the Deputy President. The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is currently facing 11 charges listed in the motion for his impeachment, that by the end of today, the House will vote on each and every charge. And in regards to the laws of impeachment that guides the Senate, in the event that the senators vote to uphold either of the 11 charges, the Deputy President would stand impeached. But that will not be the end, or that might not be the end, as he might opt to continue fighting for his political lifeline through the courts. The other probable outcome is that the Senate, upon hearing the defense and the prosecution side, and after having voted, the other way would be to probably, in the event they don't find the charges, the 11 charges, to have been substantiated. And upon taking of the vote, neither of the charge is voted to have been substantiated, then the motion falls and the Deputy President continues to hold office. Well, the team representing the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, who until last evening said their witness was only going to be the Deputy President in response to the charges leveled against the Deputy President. The team is being led by Senior Counsel Paul Moite, being the lead counsel for the defense team. They equally have Elisha Odhiambo, an advocate of the High Court, Mr. Tom Mashira, Advocate Ndego Anjiru, Advocate John Jomo, Advocate Faith Waigwa, Advocate George Wandati, among others. They are totaling to about 14 advocates who are at the Senate to defend the Deputy President, who is the only witness in his case for impeachment. The defense has equally forwarded documents to the Senate in regards to how they intend to counter the accusations facing the second in command. The accusation, among them, are the documents that the defense is supposed to be relying on for the better part of today to defend the Deputy President, are the response to the particulars of the allegations in the motion by Honorable Mwengi Mutuse. This is a response to the charges leveled against the Deputy President in the impeachment motion. They equally have presented witness affidavits of Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, and further witnesses in further affidavits under Volume 4 of the documents by the Deputy President. The defense equally has video and electronic evidence that will be played for the better part of today as they seek to convince senators why they should be throwing out the case against the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
Kindly take your seats. Clerk, you may now call the first order.
Order number 1, communication from the chair.
Now, during yesterday's session, there's a volume that had been made available by the Council for the National Assembly. And I remember Senior Counsel Mwite, you sought for time to look at it and confirm indeed that the photocopy did not introduce new material. Can we therefore now admit that document, Senior Counsel?
We looked at it, Mheshimiwa Speaker, and we have no objection. Now it can be introduced. Thank you.
Very well. May the same be admitted and be made available to all honorable senators. Next order.
Order number 2, hearing and determination on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
Now, honorable senators, ladies and gentlemen, at the rise of the House last night, the National Assembly had called 2 witnesses. They had done the evidence in chief, cross-examined, re-examined, and it was then the opportunity for the honorable senators to seek for clarifications when the House adjourned. Now, the National Assembly has a balance of 20 minutes to conclude its case. The Deputy President has 45 minutes, having taken 1 hour from the 3 hours that had been indicated to the Deputy President for today. Let us stick to the time so that we can be able to conclude this matter in good time today. Now, honorable senators, ladies and gentlemen, we will start with the clarifications sought from the first witness of the National Assembly, Honorable Mutuse. Thereafter, we will move to the second witness and conclude, and then we can now allow the National Assembly to call their third witness. Is Honorable Mutuse present? Good.
Present, Mr. Speaker.
You'll be noting the questions and the clarifications sought from the Honorable Senators. The Honorable Senator for Nandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just clarification, but since we had started yesterday with the word of the Lord, I want to leave to my brother Ekomas Mute Mutuse through you. In Proverbs 12, verses 22, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who is telling the truth. So, Mheshimiwa Mutuse Ekomas, I leave you with that. My quick clarification, Chair, with your indulgence. One, by the time you are giving us that the wealth of the Deputy President was 5.2 billion Kenyan shillings that you allege has been acquired for the last 2 years, did you access the wealth declaration from EACC? Number one. Number two, under the NCIC Act and in Mudama's case that the courts ruled, is shareholding part of the definition of the word incitement? Number three, in the matter of Kilifi Malindi Road, do you have any evidence to prove whether it is a private or a public road? And if it is either private or public, can you table the evidence or before the House? Number four, clarification on the issue of Justice Esther Maina. Are you telling us that since the Deputy President is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, does he not have a right as a citizen of Kenya not to bring any complaint against any officer, including judicial officers? Finally, on the update quickly, on 1st October 10, 2024, Cabinet Secretary Mutua.
Senator Kenywa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My question goes to Honorable Mutuse. Honorable Mutuse, was Treetop Hotel, was it available for acquisition? And if that is so, was there any law of procurement that was breached? Second one, what is the age of these DP's sons? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question first goes to the council on the side of the Deputy President. My question is on attack on the national security. And knowing that national intelligence, Mr. Speaker, is a critical organ of a government. And the attack by the Deputy President is a very serious one. And I've seen the video being played that what the current president said when he was the Deputy President is equal. And I heard also Deputy President saying, I have learned from my boss. Does that answer the question of gross misconduct on the part of attack on the security? Number two, the issue of disinheriting the widow. We've been told a lot of stories here, but I really want to know, because we are Africans, matters of widows are very critical. Have you thought of looking for the family of the late Gachagua, just to clarify so many questions that are lingering around that particular family? I thank you.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi. If you're in the first round, honorable senators, allow others also to get an opportunity to seek clarifications.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My clarification is to the DP's team. On a video that was played yesterday at a relocation point in Nairobi County. I wanted clarification from the DP's team on whether their client is aware that county governments are distinct governments, and if so, Honorable Speaker, did the DP consult with the county government of Nairobi over the challenges of relocation at Kayole? And two, Honorable Speaker, there was a video that was played, either one or two, involving a speech at either rally by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya. My question is, what was the essence of that video? And is it to show that two wrongs would make one right? Thank you.
Senator Lelegwe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My clarification is to the witness of the National Assembly. Yesterday, during the cross-examination, the advocate of the Deputy President, you asserted that you have identified several companies which you have no issues and to which you did not attribute any misconduct in their dealings. Given this context, could you inform the necessity for including these companies in the present impeachment motion? Thank you.
Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I have one question for the witness-in-chief and one clarity question from the counsel for the Deputy President, and particularly Counsel Tom Macharia. So I'll start with the Honorable Mutuse. Honorable Mutuse, may you help this House understand whether all the companies that you indicated are for the sons and the spouse of the Deputy President, and whether you established how old they are and estimated the net worth of those companies. Did you manage to estimate the net worth of those companies, and how did you do that? To the senior counsel, the counsel Tom Macharia, in the exploration of ground number 4, you led this House to look at the particulars of the coalition document, the coalition agreement. May you help us understand how we should interpret Article 91 of the Constitution and Article 232 of the Constitution with regards to your response on government being a company equal to having shares and not the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sek.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The question also goes to Honorable Mutuse. Wanted to make a clarification on the issue of Peterson Jomo, the affidavit on the Olive Garden Hotel, on the appointment of Julian Jahenda as the signatory agent, and the letter to the Public Service Commission through the clerk of the National Assembly by volume 8A, page 1, gives a different person by the name Maka Juliana Jahenda. Why do we have different names here? You need to clarify because it has a different person altogether. Two different people altogether. Second clarification, is on the issue of the award of the tender on the proposed refurbishment of the DP's residence in Karen. Honorable Mutuse, the government, through the State House Controller, signed that contract, wanted to know what is the relationship of this contract with the DP, now that you're saying it has some issues. What's all about the contract and the company that did that refurbishment? We need to know what is the relationship and what is the malpractice that has.
Senator Amida Kibwan.
Mr. Speaker, sorry, my question was for Dr. Mulwa.
Senator Wakili Sige.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got two questions. One to the Council for the Deputy President, and the other one, actually both for clarification by the Council for the Deputy President. Yesterday, in the course of your cross-examination, you took us to page 410 of Volume 3. This is with regard to the accusation where His Excellency the Deputy President divulged or accused the national intelligence of what you said. Now, my clarification from you, which I desire, is at that page 410, the evidence which you sought to juxtapose what the President did and what the Deputy President was accused of having done is with regards to one being in office and another one alleging that he's not been able to attend sessions where that complaint came from. Give us the correlation of the two. And secondly, I share the sentiments by all the senators who've sought to get from you an understanding about the coalition agreements. You attempted to explain yesterday the relationship between company shares and coalition agreement shares. You were asked about the place of this in terms of the regimes of the two kinds of agreements. What do you say as regards shares in a company registered under the Companies Act vis-a-vis post-election coalition agreements registered under the Political Parties Act and the governance of
Senator Batuli Beti Montet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to ask Honorable Mutuse, is there a minimum age of a client in a bank to get a loan of 700 million?
Senator Essie Okenyuri.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, my question, I'm awaiting Dr. Andrew Mulwa.
Senator Cheriot Aaron.
Two quick questions to you, Mutuse. Is there any crime that a Kenyan will have committed if they have 20, 30, or even 40 companies? Because I see you have listed 22 companies here. Is there any crime by just owning these companies you feel that the person you accuse has committed? Second, on this issue of Vipingo Beach, surely, Honorable Mutuse, what is the crime of the sons of the Deputy President being listed as directors? Because I have tried combing through your motion to establish what you consider to be either an illegality or a crime on their part by simply being listed as directors. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is to the Council for the DP, Wakili Masharia. The clips of the then DP Ruto played by your team, could we read it to mean that it's an admission on your part that you're saying, if it was done then by a sitting deputy president, please allow the current one to commit the same at this point? And lastly, the 30% allocation to Ford Kenya in the coalition agreement in ANC, how has it been realized?
Senator Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I have one small question for Honorable Mluse, and that is on the witness, somebody who, by the name Peterson Jomo Mushira, who wrote an affidavit, that touches on Olive Garden Hotel. He offered himself to appear and be cross-examined on the content of his affidavit. Was he invited?
Senator Kathuri Murungi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine are just very straight clarifications. Number one goes to Honorable Mutuse. Honorable Mutuse, in ground 7, you have seen that His Excellency, the Deputy President, has inexplicably amassed a humongous, these are very strong ones, property portfolio estimated at 5.2 billion. So my question is, this is within 2 years. I know for a fact that before an election, any eligible candidate clears himself or herself with the IBC before contesting. Therefore, for comparative analysis, do you have His Excellency the Deputy President's property or worth during the 2022, before the 2022 elections, so that now we can be able, as a jury, can be able to compare and see whether for 2 years, for sure, he has been able to amass this wealth. Number two, there is this property in Meru. Many Meru guys have called me last night asking me whether there is evidence to show that this land is in Meru. The last one is to the councils of the Deputy President. There was a clip which was played here yesterday when the Deputy President made a press conference in Mombasa. Immediately after the President did this in Nairobi, 2 different cities. Therefore, I did not get clarity from the councils about this, the question or the clip. So I was really requesting either one of them could be able to expound on that controversy between the 2 pressers in 2 different cities by the principal and the deputy principal of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you.
Senator Okoit Omtata.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have a question for the Honorable Mutuse. To whom does this motion belong? Because in most of your answers, you keep on saying we.
I think, Honorable Senator Omtata, that question was asked by the Honorable Enoch Wambua, Senator, and it was responded to. So just ask for a different clarification.
Okay, and other than that, I wanted to ask whether Honorable Mutuse knows the difference between an impeachment motion and a censure motion. And if he does, where does he place his motion? Is it a censure motion or is it an impeachment motion? And what are the thresholds for each of those 2 motions? if he understands the difference. Thank you.
Senator Chute.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Mutuse, ulileta ushahidi hapa mbele ya Senate ukidai ya kuwa Deputy President ako na 5.2 billion. Wewe ni wakili. Na vile unaongea jana unaonekana wakili shupavu. Ulileta ushahidi gani hapa ya kuonyesha valuation ya hii property ya hiyo katika documents yako kuonyesha imefika 5.2 billion. Swali ya pili, ulileta mashtaka 11. Vile unasimama huko leo, unaona aibu kidogo kwamba ulilete porojo mingi na mambo mingi kama ukiwa wakili hujafikiria vizuri. Sababu watu wa Marsabit wananiuliza, hiyo mtu kweli ni wakili ama ni mtu amekombolewa kutoka huko? Hebu jibu hiyo swali tafadhali.
Senator Beth Siango. Now, honorable senators, we are going to conduct ourselves in decorum. We are not in any way going to demean the witnesses. Ask your question, but stick to the rules of this House. Senator Beth Siango.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. I have two questions. One for Honorable Mutuse. In your presentation, I heard that you touched on the inheritance and property of the late Rigathi Gachagua. Have you reached out to the widow and the children of the late Gachagua to also give you facts? The next question is to the Council for the DP. Yesterday you played a clip of the president speaking in Muranga. What was the purpose of playing that clip? And how does it relate to the saying popularly now used by Kenyans, kufa dereva, kufa makanga? Thank you.
Senator Chimera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question goes to the Council for the DP. I would wish to seek clarity on the documents that they tabled yesterday, being the coalition agreement, which basically informed the basis as to which the DP has been talking about shares. I just want to know whether there is any document that secures shares in respect of the region where the DP comes from. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, if the Council is aware that his client, at the time those documents were being prepared, he was a candidate for office, and now he successfully became DP, and that he needs to promote national unity, and if it is still in order for him to continue championing for the interest of one region as against the entire nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Richard Onyonk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are two, and I would like to ask Honorable Mutuse. I hold you highly. I don't think that you're as idiotic as our colleagues will say. I want to ask you, between the time when the Deputy President was a Member of Parliament and the time when he became the Deputy President, were you able to see whether there was a deliberate variation in the amounts of money that he was handling? Did you see whether the money that he was handling as a Member of Parliament, for example, changed then to the money that you brought in, where you're saying that there is some money laundering taking place? Were you able, or are you able to show that distinction in order for you to make your case? The second question I wanted to ask you again on the same issue. When you are trying to find out whether there is money laundering on any transaction, and I know chances are you did not have the technical expertise and maybe an investigative agency to help you, but did you by any chance find out money moving from anywhere, either through His Excellency the Deputy President's private accounts or any money that was being borrowed? Because I know that one property you've mentioned that it was a loan, but all these other properties that you allege that the Deputy President had purchased, did you link that from money coming from some place or money coming from some illicit, like you say? Because I don't see that evidence on the table. And finally, I want to ask you again, Mr. Speaker, that if you look at the issue of the will of Mr. Gachagua, that is the former governor, did you by any chance get a way to ask either through the wife, the children, whether there was a meeting that took place where they were involved, or whether they were unhappy or happy with the transactions which were taking place? Because there isn't any evidence whatsoever of, for example, the wife complaining or the children complaining. Did you get anything like that which is substantive? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutinda Tabit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My two questions goes to you, Honorable Mutuse. First, in regards to this company by the name Crystal Kenya Limited, Ground 7, date of incorporation is 2009. And the CR12 that you have submitted to this house is for this year. Would you tell this house who was the initial director of this company? If that was so, was there any change of directorship of this company? Secondly, the one on trial is the Deputy President of this country and not his two sons. You have linked Crystal to be a proxy for the Deputy President through his two sons. Would you tell this house if you have any evidence that shows that money was wired from Crystal Limited to the account or to any company linked to the Deputy President?
Senator Shakil Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to Honorable Mutuse. If Judge Maina had filed any complaints regarding the being harassed by the Deputy President. Thank you.
Senator Miraj Abdullah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question goes to Mr. Mutuse, sorry. Is it your opinion that the DP was talking about enforcing the Kenya Kwanza coalition agreement when he was speaking about the shareholding issue? And the second one goes to the DP side, that we were reminded here of the oath we took when we assumed this institution. Is it in your place to say that your client has breached his own oath even before we make a conclusion? Because we were made to read the third schedule here on justice and directly and indirectly revealing such matters, and the oath of secrecy that His Excellency the Deputy President took. In his utterances, he used to speak about not the Mlima being touched. So in the essence of national unity, don't you think that your client, the DP, or you clarify for us that he has already breached his own oath even before we make a decision as the jury of this House? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My first question goes to Mutuse and a comment. Honorable Speaker, I want to find out from Mheshimiwa, out of the 22 companies that you've alleged associated with the Deputy President, how many are really of interest to this particular impeachment. Yesterday you talked about the one in Rea Vivingo, and we saw that 10,000 of the shares, the total shares, are owned by the estate of the late Governor Gachagua. Then a comment, Honorable Speaker, is the clips that were played yesterday on shareholding. I think I want to ask the legal counsel for the Deputy President. It looks like we didn't stop campaigns after election. It looked like we continued to propagate campaigns because we expected the Deputy President, immediately after campaigns, we stop about this thing of shareholding because
Senator Maanzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this would have gone to Governor Orengo, but since he said the clients, the National Assembly had given him instructions, I would like them to tell me what is the relevance of the verse they read yesterday. And also, on the floor of the National Assembly, they read a verse that when bad leaders rule, badness increases in a country. And when good leaders rule, goodness increases in a country. Finally, what is the maximum number of companies can an individual participate in under the law? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mutuse, you may now proceed to respond. You have exactly 10 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, for this opportunity. I have, from the questions that have come across, there are many that relate to the companies, and with your indulgence, allow me to start from there. Senator Cheriot, Senator from Marakwet, and several senators have asked why I listed 21 companies and why I said I did not have an interest in some of them. Number one, I think it is important for us to understand the context within which we are operating. I am not an investigator. And the law under Article 94, Article 95, does not make a member of Parliament, the National Assembly or Senate, an investigator. What I'm required to do is to establish a prima facie case, to establish that what is happening is outside the requirements of the law. And having been in this country and with a lot of enthusiasm in matters governance, I also know that this Senate has an opportunity to consider the impeachment of the late Nderito Gachagua. And in that impeachment, because this is a house of record, you will realize that most of the companies that I've listed were also complained about by the County Assembly of Nyeri during the impeachment of Governor Nderito Gachagua. And the complaint was specifically that there was a brother to the late governor, and the brother is one Rigathi Gachagua, who was doing all the business in Nyeri County. And from that basis, therefore, I needed to expound to find out what these companies that had been complained about during that impeachment, what these companies that had been complained about in the Esther Minor decision in terms of money laundering had to do with the Deputy President and the things that I'm alleging against him. And it is on that basis that I listed these companies. I want to invite members of this Senate to also know that in doing this, it is not just about the direct evidence. It is also about the circumstantial evidence. It's also about the circumstances that led to where we are. That there are companies that were complained about doing business in Nyeri County. It came to this Senate. That the same companies were complained about doing money laundering, and a decision of the High Court by Justice Maina has been tabled before you. And today, we are complaining that the same companies are helping to do corruption and money laundering. And that's the reason why we bring those companies. Please notice that in an impeachment, because I've been asked about threshold, and I know you know about it, my work here is not to prove criminal liability. It is not to prove beyond reasonable doubt. My work here is not to prove civil liability, but to show political responsibility. And I have been able to do that. In terms of Vipingo Ridge, the question I want to invite honorable senators, and I request that you listen to me. I was told yesterday that Vipingo Ridge, the two sons of His Excellency the Deputy President, are mere directors, and that the shares are owned by the estate of the late Derito Gachagua. But then you ask yourself, all of you here, you have children, why would my brother's children own my estate and not my children? Why would my brother's children be the ones who are directors in my estate and not my own children? If you die today, will your children be the ones being directors of your properties, or it is the children of your brothers? Don't you see this is suspicious? It is obviously suspicious. Number two, in law, and I want to challenge anyone. An estate, what is an estate? An estate is the totality of your belongings. So, can an estate own an estate? It is administrators. We would expect that the executors in the estate who are named in the will are the ones who would have been named in the shareholding. And we know all these trick games that are being played around to hide ownership. And that, because I talked about circumstantial evidence, that is to be compared with the affidavit of Mr. Jomo, in terms of how Jomo was approached to be proxy in buying the property, and how Jahenda, the question that has been asked, is the one operating the accounts. And we have been able to show that the same Jahenda, the same lady who works at the DP's office, is the same person who is the manager at the hotel and is the one who is operating the accounts. So I invite you to see the web of secrecy, the web of conspiracy. It is a web. And this is why I said these are white-collar crimes. They are done by intelligent people. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to get direct evidence, but in the totality of the circumstances, it points to money laundering and corruption. Let me now go to Senator for Nandi, my good friend, Senator Cherangei. Thank you very much for the Bible verse. I'll keep on reading it, and every time I read it, I'll remember you. 5.2 billion wealth. Did I ask for the wealth declaration? I have said here, I was not in an investigation journey. I was doing my role under the law to establish a prima facie case. And the last I know, in terms of public declaration, because this has also been asked, the Deputy President, during the presidential debate, as a candidate for election, did declare that it was worth 800 million shillings. I have listed companies, I have listed suspicious transactions that lead me to the conclusion that it is now worth 5.2 billion shillings. The law on unexplained assets, because this is important. The law on unexplained assets is such that you are asked, you own this, please tell us how you acquired it. Because as far as we know, your legitimate income cannot support this. That is what I have done. I have listed properties that I have laid evidence that they are either directly or indirectly owned by the Deputy President. It is upon him, and this law is established. It is upon him to tell us where he got money to buy those properties, because in as far as we know, his legitimate sources of income do not support that income. Senator Kinyua, thank you for the question. Treetop Hotel is owned by KWS and therefore is a public institution. The expectation at law is that it should be, if it was to be leased, that needed to follow the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. And therefore would have expected an advertisement, a competitive process, to leading to its acquisition and leasing to a private person. There is no evidence that that was done, and that's why I allege and I approved that the Deputy President used his office to influence the acquiring of Treetops Hotel. abuse of office. Whether we have had the opportunity to discuss with the children and the widows of the late Nerito Gachagua, please allow me not to comment on that, because there are requests also, as I said yesterday, that we keep certain matters that come to our knowledge during this process in secrecy. Senator for Samburu, the necessity of including the companies, I have said. The children of the children of Rigathi Gachagua, they are in, I think one is in his early 30s, the other one is in his late 20s. Whether there is an age limit for somebody to obtain a loan of 700 million, no, there isn't an age limit, but the guess, yours and mine, how many children of that age in the Republic of Kenya would have security enough to secure a loan of 600 million? Because to secure a loan of 600 million, the bankers tell us that you have to place property probably that is 10 times more in value than that. When did they acquire that property? Number two, it is not our evidence, and this is important for me to clarify, that Abadea's Safari Lodges was acquired through a loan. It is an explanation that we have discounted. He said that they obtained a loan of 600 million, but the only document that was produced is an offer letter for the loan. There is no evidence to show that the loan was granted. There is no evidence to show any charge on that loan. And therefore, it is our contention that that explanation is not conclusive. That explanation cannot suffice. And therefore, it goes back to the Deputy President to tell us where he got the 535 million, where he got the 143 million to buy those properties, because the loan is not substantiated. Senator, in terms of Olive Gardens, we have been able to show Julian Jahenda, the one managing the hotel and the one working in the DP's office, is one and the same person. Jomo, we bought the hotel on a promise that the Deputy President, the truth of the matter is that
conclude, Honorable Mutuse.
Jomo bought the hotel
2 minutes to conclude.
as a proxy for the Deputy President. What problem do we have with refurbishment at the office of the Deputy President? We do not have a problem with the tender, we have a problem with the priorities. Kenyans today, and the Deputy President is talking about it, are crying about services. Is it a priority to renovate the office, or is it a priority to give water to the people of Kibwezi? Vipingo Beach, I have explained whether you would bequeath your wealth to your children or to the children of your brother. Senator of Meru, the property, there is an admission from the response by the DP that he actually owns a property in Meru, so I do not need to belabor that point. He has already admitted he owns a property in Meru, but he says he got a loan from one of the local circles. He has not produced evidence for that loan. And therefore, to my contention, that issue is already proved. In terms of the NIS address in Mombasa and why we complain about it, imagine, and I do not want to imagine that, somebody was a member of Al-Shabaab, and the Deputy President, none other than the Deputy President, stood up and said our intelligence system has collapsed. Wouldn't that be the right time to strike? That is the risk that the country faced by that particular announcement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let us have the second witness. As the counsel for the DP responds or clarifies on the issues raised towards them, may we have the second witness available for purposes of clarifications. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin with the tortured question of the estate of the late Nerito Gachagua. It is, I think, a shame that we'll stick on Honorable Mutuse for the rest of his years on earth.
Counsel for the Deputy President.
Yes.
There are very few clarifications that were directed towards you.
Yes.
So I'll give you 5 minutes.
You're
not responding to the clarifications by Mutuse. You're responding to the clarification as sought.
Those are the ones I am. Honorable Speaker, there are quite a number of clarifications, especially on this estate issue, which please allow me 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Senate. Now, I began my cross-examination of Honorable Mutuse yesterday with asking him how long he has practiced law and what law he has practiced. The problems you have as a Senate, as a quasi-judicial body, are born out of inexperience of legal practice. If you had practiced any succession law, I'm answering the question.
Order, Honorable Senators.
I'm answering the question.
I'm sorry, Senator Kavindu, just have a seat. I couldn't take that.
Yes.
What is the source of this?
I asked him yesterday. He answered the question.
Yes, Counsel for DP. What exactly did you say?
I just wanted to say that the National Assembly was provided with an affidavit by the executors of the will of the late Nderitu Gachagua. It is before you. It is volume number 4, stated, called the Further Affidavit of Nderitu Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua. It should be before you. In that affidavit, the two executors state in comprehensive detail everything concerning that particular estate. They are as follows. 1, the estate property was divided in accordance with the will. The probate matter commenced and went all the way to the end to conclusion. All issues were resolved within the court case and, in a sense, are now res judicata. That is issue number 1. Issue number 2, you will find in that affidavit between pages 11 and pages 19.
Who sought that clarification?
I was asked, the question was asked here, I think, by Senator Dulo asked.
For DP, do not respond to what Honorable Mutuse said.
Senator
Pick
Dulo.
a senator's issue and respond to it.
That's what I'm responding to.
Exactly. So whose clarification are you?
Senator Dulo asked, can you please address the question of disinheriting the widows, if Hunter could confirm that? I believe she did. That's what I'm answering, yes. And so the will, as I'm explaining, does not disinherit the children or the widows or anybody else. It is merely because in the motion brought before you, there were properties listed in the motion that were part of the estate. That is the only reason this estate has become the subject of proceedings before the Senate and the National Assembly. So when you look at the will, as I've said, between pages 11 and 12, at page 13, if you have the document before you, this is volume number 4, there is a long list of how this estate was divided. And I won't go through it, you'll be able to read it yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, you will see an affidavit by the executors, except the Deputy President who did not sign this affidavit. These are the 2 remaining executors who have signed it, explaining between pages 4 and page 9 everything that was done in accordance with the law and in accordance with the law of succession, and that no one's property was taken away.
Senator Dulo, you know our rules. Proceed, Counsel. Proceed.
Yes. Now, I've been asked some questions about the issue of the Moranga video and about the shareholder agreements and whether 2 wrongs make a right. Our position is the opposite. Our position was that the address by the President in Moranga was in fact in confirmation of the agreements. The President was merely saying that they are implementing the agreements they agreed upon, and it was incumbent upon his deputy to assist his president in confirming that they were implementing the agreements. That is the purpose of the video. That is the purpose of those agreements. It is not to say kufa makanga, kufa dereva. I think Senator Beth asked that question. It is to say okoeni makanga na muokoe dereva. That is what we're asking you to do this morning. Senator, I believe Eddie, Senator Senator Eddie Owiti, my good friend, has asked about the interrelation between Articles 91 and Article 232 and how those interact with the agreements. If I would call your attention, honorable senators, to the contracts themselves again, I don't know whether you have them. The contracts are in volume 3, and I'm referring you to page 429. At page 429, this is what the agreement said, and I'm reading, this is the primary agreement that was signed between UDA and between Ford Kenya and ANC. This is what it said. Further terms, parameters, and details of the sharing of positions of responsibility in the national government pursuant to this article shall be contained in a separate schedule to this agreement, which schedule shall be negotiated and executed before the date of the general elections scheduled on 9th August. So there were subsequent agreements executed on how these shares were to be divided and to be implemented. That is issue number 1. But issue number 2, the parties gave themselves some room, and you'll see this at page 430. This is Article 22, Subarticle G. Notwithstanding the content of this article, the founding member parties hereby commit to make any adjustments that may be necessary to accommodate the development priorities of other parts of the country to ensure equitable distribution of Kenya's national resources and wealth for the benefit of every citizen and every part of Kenya. When the Deputy President takes a stand, we will be demonstrating to you with videos where both he and his boss, the President, went out of their way to say that the voting did not matter to how they were going to implement the development agenda. I think I was asked whether there are any contracts or agreements that were signed on behalf of Mount Kenya. I did not see any. We don't have any thus far. There were several parties from Mount Kenya, but they did not negotiate anything. Then an important question. The Deputy President did not say the government is a company. When you read the statements, he was making an example. It's like a company. It was a tool to explain a document. That's all he was doing. I'm pressed for time here. Yes, Senator Chariot asked a question about two wrongs making a right, and whether the current DP is conceding that because he did what the former DP did, that then he is guilty. Again, far from the truth. We are asserting, when you read the documents, the documents at page 412, this is the article where the President spoke, the former Deputy President spoke in Moyale. This is what he said. The Deputy President reiterated that he used to ask tough questions when attending the National Security Council meeting about schemes of murder. It is something that has troubled me a lot, and that is why we have put it to the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto that extrajudicial killing must come to an end. It is illegal and constitutional and offends every principle of the right of life. In law, there is no secrecy where crimes are committed or there is violation of the Constitution. The Deputy President was merely following the mentorship of the man who occupied the office before him, and was not releasing any secrets that did not concern illegalities or unconstitutionality. So that deals with the question of oath of secrecy. I think that was asked. And because of shortage of time, I'll allow my learned colleague, Mr. Elisha Ngoya, to come and answer a few questions. Thank you very much, honorable senators, for your time and your attention.
How many minutes, clerk?
Mr. Speaker, 3 minutes will be enough for me.
No, we need to know how much time you have. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ongoya for the Deputy President.
Proceed, Council.
Thank you.
Council.
To the question whether the Deputy President is aware that county governments are distinct, our answer is simple. Governments at national and county levels are distinct and interdependent. So the constitutional architecture is not to create pigeonholes, is to create cooperative and interdependent governments. And just to bolster that argument, you will notice that the allegation against the Deputy President on Nairobi River relocation is not that he destabilized Nairobi County government, is that he refused to support implementation of a resolution of cabinet a national government institution. Meaning even at that level, that was the understanding that this was an intergovernmental approach to clean up Nairobi River. On the question of Julian Jahenda, allow me to say this. The person who has brought Julian Jahenda in these proceedings is a deponent of an affidavit. Allow us to hold him to account on that affidavit when he comes to testify himself, because we have questions for him around this witness too. Then finally, on the question of Treetops Hotel, let this be very clear distinction. Treetops Hotel was not acquired by the company in question from KWS. Treetops Hotel was an assignment of lease. When the Kenya government gives you a lease, say 99 years, you can sell that lease. So it was an assignment of lease that was already assigned by KWS to a third party. So the construction that a company associated with the deputy president, rightly or wrongly, got this property from KWS is actually wrong. There was a completely different private property that had a lease. Then that company holding that lease assigned that lease. Thank you so much. My 2 minutes are over.
The second witness. Order, honorable senators. Senator Olekina, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question to Mr. Mulwa. Mr. Mulwa, if you look at the response in volume 6 by the Deputy President, the Deputy President says as follows, 4.2, volume 6, which is in page 11, in response to the allegations that you called him, or he called you, to be able to push for the bid board. He said that this is clear in paragraph 4 of the witness affidavit of Andrew Mulwa. He contradicts himself by claiming that on the 11th July 2023, I pressured him to surrender the original bid board, yet by the letter dated 5th of May 2023, KEMSA had requested for collections of the original bid. Thus, there was no cause for pressure to be exerted on Mr. Mulwa or any other person. Now, in your affidavit on page 70, you put an excerpt of your WhatsApp or communication between yourself and Dr. Rigathi, where Dr. Rigathi, it's alleged, he said, Dr. Ikunu Rigathi here, kindly contact me. When possible, there is a document for HE we are trying to collect. In the same affidavit, you have annexed 3 letters. One letter dated June 30th, and I want you to keep in mind of the 30th of May. June 30th, which is a letter sent to you, from KEMSA to ESCC, requesting for the bid board. That is June 30th. That is a month after the date that the Deputy President alleges to have received information from KEMSA asking him to collect the bid bond. Secondly, you have a letter dated 11th July, where you communicate to the company called Shabika Impex Private Limited, asking them to collect the bid board. Yesterday, when you were being cross-examined, you said that you were afraid, you felt pressured when the Deputy President called you, allegedly, and asked you to surrender the bid board. Could you please give us a chronological of events. Because this letter is dated 11th that you sent to them. You allege that the Deputy President called you on 11th.
Honorable SC, Rule 23 of the Rules of Procedure. SC Okenyuri, he's gotten the question. He's gotten the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to ask Dr. Andrew Muller the following. Confirm if the Deputy President did call you. 2, kindly confirm if Shobika Implex Private Limited, whose agent in Kenya is Crystal Kenya Limited, had emerged as one of the winner of the 3.7 billion mosquito tender before the tender. And finally, what was the issue with the bid bond that you said yesterday you were trying to go pick from EACC? Thank you.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, my question is directed to to Mutuse and maybe his lawyers. Yes, I'm directing it to his lawyers. Please, kindly give me my time. I didn't talk, Olekina, when you were talking.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me go ahead.
Address yourself to the chair.
Thank you.
Proceed.
One of my questions is about the speech which Honorable Mutuse said that the Deputy President addressed from Mombasa. My question is there any law preventing either the President or the Deputy President from intervening if they see any failures with the National Intelligence Services? Is there any law preventing them from intervening or questioning the National Intelligence Service, or is there any law directing them where they should ask these questions from? 2, the lady, Honorable Justice Esther Maina, has she ever made any complaint after the case was done? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to Dr. Mulwa. Dr. Mulwa, I can attest that the number you have put here, through which His Excellency the President pressured you, he relates very well with me because in the days we used to talk with him, I used to use the same number. Your evidence is so critical that we would like you to walk us through that conversation between the Deputy President and yourself, during which time he was putting pressure on you. Mr. Speaker, sir, Tom Masharia, Council, you are a man of many years of experience, and you know the hierarchy of laws. The Constitution is at the apex, and all other laws are subservient. In your attempt to justify, or rather to protect, and secure the Deputy President from the accusation that he breached the Constitution, Article 27, which prohibits him from discrimination, you have chosen to justify it by using an act of parliament called the Political Parties Act that provides for the agreement. Tell me, are you telling me that by dint of that act, which is subservient to the Constitution, which the Deputy President violated, therefore the act sets him free? And finally, my younger brother, Ongoya, have told us that for Mutuse to be able to prove that there was insubordination, he needed to bring something from the supervisor.
Senator Hamida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remember I am the one who raised this motion, this statement on the mosquito net for investigation. So I am so much aware of this investigation that went on. But Dr. Mulwa, apart from the financial loss that KEMSA incurred, did the alleged interference of the relationship, the alleged interference affect the relationship between the Global Fund and KEMSA? Because I remember, of course, the tender was terminated, which was about 3.7 billion. Global Fund terminated the tender. So was there any a relationship lost between the two? Number two, did the PS Josephine Mburu and CEO Terry Ramadan lose their jobs due to this tender process, during the tendering process of the mosquito net tender? Number three, did you feel intimidated and coerced to act given the office of the DP? Thank you.
Senator Wafula.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Daktari Mulwa, madai kwamba ulipata simu kutoka kwa naibu rais kufuatilia jambo linalohusu mwanawe. Wewe kama mtumishi wa umma, unapopata simu kutoka kwa kiongozi wako wa kitaifa akifuata yale yanayohusu mwanawe, unaona ni vema kutekeleza jinsi anavyotaka ama kufuata katiba ili kutetea yeyote aliyeomba nafasi ya kufanya kazi? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Munyihaji.
Pia mimi swali langu ni kwa Daktari Mulwa kwamba hii zabuni ulisema kuwa ilifutiliwa mbali. Je, wakati ilipofutiliwa mbali kuna hasara yoyote ilitokea kwa serikali ama kwa KEMSA kutokana na kufutiliwa mbali kwa zabuni hiyo? Pili ni kuwa wewe kama mkurugenzi wa KEMSA ulichukua hatua gani ulipopata simu ama ulipopata maelezo kutoka kwa naibu wa rais kwamba hiyo tenda ama hiyo zabuni ipewe mtu fulani? Asante.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Dr. Mulwa, I have two related questions to you. One, is the return of bidboards part of the procurement process? And if it is part of the procurement process, would you say that a call from the Deputy, His Excellency Deputy President, on this issue amounts to interfering with the procurement process? Thank you.
Senator Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. My question is to Dr. Mulwa, that you said DP calls you. Is there, when he calls you, is there any interference with the procurement process? Thank you.
Witness, you may now proceed to make the clarifications as sought by the honorable senators. You have 10 minutes to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable senators. I will try to answer the questions that have been put forth on the matter of the procurement of the long-lasting mosquito nets by the various senators. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senator for Narok asked me to give a chronology of what happened so that I may be able to bring out the issue of the pressure that I got from His Excellency the Deputy President and alluded to the letters that I have submitted in regard to the tenders. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, on around the end of April, the Global Fund wrote to the Kenya Global Fund Management Office, communicating a pre-award review decision to terminate the procurement of the 3.7 billion mosquito net tenders. Mr. Speaker, sir, this was after the procurement had been done earlier on in February by KEMSA, and it's a usual procedure during the procurement under the Global Fund, after the evaluation of the tenders, the evaluation report is shared with the Global Fund to authenticate if full procurement procedures and law have been followed. On review, the Global Fund realized that the tender, which the evaluation committee had recommended to be awarded to one Shobika Impex Limited, had an issue. And Mr. Speaker, I will refer to the bid bond, which I shared in the documents. In the motion, I think it's page is page 76 out of 85. Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, if you look at the bid bond that I'm referring to, the bid bond down there has a stamp of the 21st of February 2023, having been received by one Monica at 9:37 a.m. Mr. Speaker, sir, this tender was running at the time this bid bond is being received. The tender was supposed to close on the 10th of March, but the earlier closure, this bid bond, did not come as part of the tender document. Usually, bid bonds are annexures to the tender document, and therefore, this bid bond came as an ordinary mail. Further, if you look on top of that page, it's written PD, which is Procurement Department, FY&F for your next necessary action, and I can confirm the signature for the CEO who was there before me on the 23rd of February while the tender was opening. In other words, Mr. Speaker, sir, this bid bond already had issues even before the tender closed and was opened, and therefore the bid bond was submitted outside the tender document, which is already an irregularity in the procurement. Mr. Speaker, after the cancellation of these tenders, the Global Fund, this issue brought an outcry, and as a result, a principal secretary, the CEO, and officials from the Ministry of Health and KEMSA were suspended as a result. The PS was actually dismissed. Mr. Speaker, sir, an investigation was instituted by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority the EACC, both houses of, of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, investigation onto the procurement anomalies. Mr. Speaker, one company wrote to us on, around June 12th or thereabout, asking for return of the bid bond. This company was Shobika, and we were able to, we did not have the document because EACC and other investigating agencies had taken the original documents. And therefore, we wrote back and informed them of the state. And when July came, I think the investigations were happening, officers were recording statements, and that is when I got a call from the Deputy President asking me to surrender the bid bond to Dr. Rigathi Kino. On the same day, because I called EACC, I informed them that, and for the record, Honorable Speaker, I had never received a call from anyone above my cabinet secretary. This was the first time I received a call from a sitting deputy president and requesting for documents that were under investigations. Mr. Speaker, in my 15 years of public service, I had never been asked to do that. And therefore, I felt coerced, and I had to leave the business that I had for the day, go to EACC, follow up the bid bond so that I am able to retrieve it. I was actually able to write a letter to them and follow it up because I had written a letter earlier, and I followed up and sat there for 5 hours for them to discharge the bid bond. And on the same date, I wrote a letter and called for them to collect the bid bond. I think, Mr. Speaker, that explains the conversation and the pressure that I felt as an officer serving in public service. I have explained that the company that had been awarded this tender through the technical evaluation was Shobika Impex, whose local agent, sole agent, is Crystal Limited. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have walked the Senate through the conversation that I had with the question asked by Honorable Dr. Boni Alwale on what transpired and how I was able to get the bid bond. Yes, beyond the financial loss, Mr. Speaker, the nets that we were supposed to buy 14 million nets under KEMSA procurement. As a result of purchasing these nets through the Global Fund WAMBO system, we could only purchase 10.2 million nets. Global Fund could only supply 10.2 million nets. That means Kenyans lost 3 million also nets as a result. Secondly, there was a delay. We were supposed to implement the distribution of nets to the public from September 2023. That was not possible as a result of the delays. We were only able to start distribution of the nets from January this year. In effect, there was a loss in terms of money, there was a loss in terms of number of nets, and 3, there was a loss in terms of citizens did not enjoy the protection that they would have gotten from the nets in the time that had been envisaged. Indeed, I can confirm, and I've already mentioned, that PS Josephine was dismissed, and acting CEO and other officers were also suspended. About following the law, when I got the call, Honorable Speaker and Senators, I was able to, one, consult the investigating authorities, and through correspondence, I was able to get the documents as per the law. And therefore, I did not in any way go out of the law as a result. Is the return of bid bond? Mr. Speaker, I'm told my time is up. Can I wind up?
The remaining queries.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, whether return of bid bond is part of procurement, indeed return of bid bond is not part of the procurement process per se, but after the procurement process, return of bid bond is a usual procedure because people had given commitments in banks, in insurances, and therefore returning bid bonds is a procedure. The extraordinary circumstance in this matter is one, the bid bond that had been submitted was not part of the tender document per se, and number two, this was a matter that was under investigation. And therefore, for the Deputy President to push for the bid bond to be returned, it means that it was pushing for interference of an investigation that was already ongoing. I already gave account that I had to personally go to EACC to get the document. Mr. Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
There's some clarifications that are sought from Council Macharia.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members, Honorable Poni Khalwale asked a question from the law. Indeed, there's a hierarchy of laws. It's the Constitution, the laws, and subsidiary legislation. And I cannot purport to be teaching lawmakers how this is done.
5 minutes.
Yes, and so I say this with tremendous respect. The hierarchy of laws, the infrastructure of laws, is that there are provisions left in the Constitution as self-executing. The Constitution then delegates to Senate and the National Assembly the power to make laws to execute certain of its provisions. And to that extent, that statute carries constitutional authority because it is made pursuant to a constitutional provision. And that would be the case with the Political Parties Act. At Article 91 and Article 92, the Constitution prescribes what political parties and the regulation of political parties and coalitions must contain and must do. If a statute is unconstitutional, then the High Court, as it has done many times, then strikes down that statute as unconstitutional. The Political Parties Act, as currently framed, and the basis upon which these coalition agreements were drawn and registered, and a government formed on the basis of those agreements, have not been found to be unconstitutional. So we're not saying that any wrong was done. We're in fact saying everything was done in accordance with the Constitution and the law. That's number one. Number two, when His Excellency the Deputy President stands to make his response before you, amongst the things he'll be showing you in great detail with documentation and with videos is the lengths to which not only he, but his ultimate appointing authority, his boss, the President, and the entire government went to ensure that the development was spread across the country. And I think, as I demonstrated a few minutes ago here, the contracts themselves indicated that there would be need for flexibility to ensure that you're within the Constitution. That did not derogate from the requirement by the parties to implement and to obey and to ensure the contracts were implemented. So they were done constitutionally. And then finally, again, I think I keep emphasizing, they talked about government, they didn't talk about tribes, they didn't talk about regions, and they ensured that the constitutional requirements, as I think Senator Ediwiti had asked me, at Article 91 and 232 were complied with. Thank you very much.
Counsel for the National Assembly. There is a clarification sought by Senator Kavindu. If you may proceed to clarify, then we close and move to the third witness.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The first question was whether there is any law preventing the Deputy President from intervening when they see any failures in the National Intelligence Service. The answer is that the oath of due execution of the office of the Deputy President, which is in the Constitution, it's part of our Constitution, prohibits the Deputy President from disclosing matters, especially those relating to national security, that are committed to a secrecy. And therefore, it was a violation of his oath of office. It was a violation of the Constitution to discuss matters of that nature at a time in the circumstances prevailing in a press conference broadcast to the whole world. There is a constitutional forum to raise those issues. And indeed, the Deputy President, I want to believe very many other officers, even ordinary citizens can write to that National Security Council if they have genuine grievances about its operations or its personnel or its capabilities and performance. Mr. Speaker, when that oath of office, which is part of our Constitution, says matters committing to the secrecy of the Deputy President are not to be divulged, it is an acknowledgement by our Constitution that there are certain matters which by their very nature, they are not to be broadcast. The Swahili say, usimwage mtama penye kuku wengi. Some things require discretion, they require you be tempered, and they require you know the forum and the occasion to do it. And therefore, it is no answer, even if we were to accept, for argument's sake, that all the grievances the Deputy President had are factually correct, it will still be no answer to that charge. The second question was whether Justice Maina has made any complaint after the case was done. We are not aware of any complaint lodged by the Honorable Lady Justice Maina. But that question, Mr. Speaker, also tells you why this is an impeachable offense. Those who know our constitutional theory say judges hold neither sword nor the purse. The reason our Constitution protects judges and puts them in a special place is because, unlike politicians and the executive, they have no way and no forum of dealing with harassment from the political branches of government. But if we are wrong in that, Mr. Speaker, again, why I'm very happy with this question, you imagine, let's accept for argument's sake that indeed Justice Maina could have lodged a complaint, because it's possible she would have walked to a police station, met an OCS there, recorded a complaint and a statement. Dr. Mulo has just been here as a junior officer. The practicalities of an OCS, a police constable, summoning the Deputy President of the Republic to respond to a complaint, the whole specter of handcuffing, taking fingerprints, processing the Deputy President to take him to the magistrate's court to answer to a criminal offense, would subject that office to so much indignity. And because the design of our Constitution is that people holding certain offices, in fact, the constitutional text is that they should behave in a manner that brings honor and dignity to the office. It is to save the country the drama, the spectacle of a junior police officer, a junior prosecutor, harassing, arresting, prosecuting a deputy. And because we don't want to subject our democracy to this kind of showbiz, that is why this Senate is vested with the power of impeachment, and that is why our Supreme Court has said several times, as I pointed out yesterday, the test is not whether he is criminally liable or civilly liable, which is the business of the judiciary. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Counsel for the National Assembly, you may call your third witness.
Honorable Speaker, distinguished senators, my name is Moses Kipkogei. Our next witness is Abdi Mahmoud from the EACC. He's a former witness who was called pursuant to the summons issued by this House at the request of the National Assembly. I request the Sergeant at Arms to call him from room 4.
Mr. Speaker, may I just raise a concern? It is true that this witness was called pursuant to a summons of the Senate, but normally a witness is called to produce a particular document or to produce a particular item. As we stand now, none of us knows what this witness is coming to produce, so we can't even pull it out from these massive documents. We want it to go on record that this is trial by ambush. We will know for the first time what this witness has come here to do when he begins speaking. I just want that to go on record, but before he starts, I want counsel to tell us what documents this witness wants to rely on, so that against all the unfairness we have witnessed, at least we can have some semblance of looking at it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Counsel for the National Assembly, what say you?
Mr. Speaker, the documents to be identified by the witness are contained in volume 8A of our bundle.
Call in the witness, please. Just have the witness on this side.
Okay.
Where the others took the oath. Now, just to remind Counsel for the National Assembly, you have 20 minutes to conclude on your case, and the Counsel for the Deputy President, you still have your 45 minutes intact for purposes of cross-examination. Let's proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I intend to use 15 minutes to take the witness in chief and reserve 5 minutes for any re-exam.
So before the witness takes an oath, Counsel for the Deputy President, you do confirm now that you understand and you know the documents that the witness is going to produce as contained in volume 8A. And these are the documents, I believe, in respect to which I made a ruling yesterday, to have them admitted.
We do, Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Thank you so much, Senior Counsel.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So this is, we cannot, and as a chair, I cannot allow trial by ambush. Proceed.
Thank you. I, Abdi Ahmed Mohamud, do solemnly swear that the evidence that I shall give before this Senate in respect of the matters before the Senate shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, So help me God. Thank you.
So, Mr. Abdi, introduce yourself to the Senate, the place you work, your rank, and how many years you've worked in that institution.
Thank you. My name is Abdi Mohamud. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I have worked at the Commission since 2005. I started off as a senior investigator. Right now, I'm the Deputy Chief Executive Officer. My main responsibilities are to assist the Chief Executive Officer of the Commission in the day-to-day running of the Commission, among others. Another key role and responsibility that I hold at the Commission is that I chair the Commission Management Committee on Investigation Evaluation. Basically, I have been an investigator since 2005 when I joined the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmoud. You are before the Senate this morning following summonses which were issued to your institution. And in the summonses, the 3 areas were identified. Would you wish to appraise the Senate on those 3 areas which you are to guide the Senate on?
Okay. If I may refer to my documents,
yes, you can.
Thank you. So there are 3 areas that I was requested to comment on. The first one is an investigation that the Commission conducted on a procurement on the supply of long-lasting insecticide nets at the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, KEMSA. The second issue that I was to comment on is the declaration of gifts and donations received by His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President, during his tenure of the office to date, pursuant to Section 14(5) of the Leadership and Integrity Act. The third issue that I was to comment on is the declaration of conflict of interest made to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission by His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, to date.
So we'll go to the first question, or the first issue, which you are asked to address yourself to. And I wish to refer the witness, Honorable Speaker, to our bundle 8 of our documents. Can you identify the document at page 3 of that document?
Yes, I can identify. This is a letter that we did to the Clerk of the National Assembly on 23rd September 2024. It was responding to a letter that we received from the National Assembly requesting us to furnish the National Assembly with information on the investigation that we conducted on the long-lasting insecticide nets, and to indicate in our responses any outcome or status of the investigation that we did conduct.
So your letter in that volume relates to procurement of certain items at KEMSA, am I correct?
You are correct.
You've appraised the Senate, the National Assembly in that letter. Would you appraise the Senate on its contents?
The content is the procurement of long-lasting insecticides by KEMSA. This was in the year 2023, and the Commission, in its functions, either it conducts investigation on its own motion or at the instigation of other parties. For this particular investigation, we did receive a letter from the CS, who was then in charge of the Ministry of Health, indicating that there were certain irregularities in a procurement of insecticide nets by the KEMSA, And the CS then wanted us to conduct investigation and find out whether certain procurement irregularities did take place. And from that, we actually did carry out investigation, and the outcome of the investigation so far is already reflected in the letter that we have provided.
And what was the outcome of the investigations, Mr. Mahmoud?
There were serious procurement challenges that affected that particular tender. The major one was change of specifications to suit a company called Shobika Impex Limited, which was having which had a local agent by the name Crystal Kenya Limited that had the sole responsibility, or rather the sole function, to provide certain mosquitoes that had certain chemicals. So basically what the investigation concluded is that there are two types of chemicals that were used on these particular nets. If I may read one of them, one is called Synergist piperolene butoxide, PBO, long-lasting insecticides nets, while the other one is pyrethroid, long-lasting insecticide nets. So this company had the sole distribution rights on this particular chemical called PPO. And in totality, from the investigation, we realized that the PS at that particular time did write to the CEO of KEMSA, instigating, or rather compelling the CEO of KEMSA to change the specifications so that it can fit the chemical that was to be provided by Shobika Impex Limited, whose local agent was Crystal Kenya Limited. Basically, that was the starting point. The other problem was that there was, when the tender was to close on 23rd, the company, this is Shobika Impex Limited, at that particular time wanted to have a bid bond introduced into the documents, into the tender documents. Yet we all know that in procurement, the tender document, the bid bond is supposed to be part of the tender document. They're supposed to be delivered together. But in this circumstance, the bid bond was delivered by hand to the CEO's office on 23rd, when the tender was supposed to close. So they had to find a way of extending the period of closure up to 10th of the next month of March, so that that particular bid bond, which had issues, can now be factored in, or rather regularized, and so that this company called Shobika could benefit out of that particular extension. Of course, there are many other issues. Like, we also realized that at the end of when the tender was discontinued, for example, there is a company called Tianjin Yorkol International Trading Company that was among the bidders that initially bidded for this particular tender. They were disqualified on a fact that they were not authorized by a manufacturer. This company had provided sufficient evidence and proof that they're actually manufacturers. So a company that is a manufacturer was disqualified on the ground that they did not provide authorization from a manufacturer, yet they are actually manufacturers. So those are some of the challenges that the tender had.
And at the end of it all, what became of this tender?
At the end of what happened is, after the technical committee of the KEMSA did recommend Shobika to be awarded the tender, because this tender was actually was being financed by Global Fund. So the agreement was after the Tender Evaluation Committee's report is done, that report is to be handed over to Global Fund, the financiers. So when that report was surrendered or handed over to the Global Fund realized...
You said the evaluation committee of KEMSA, made a recommendation that Shopika be awarded.
That was the finding. That was the
finding of KEMSA.
That was the recommendation by the technical committee.
What happened next?
What happened is Global Fund decided to terminate the tender and asked an internal firm, or rather an internal organization called Wombo.org, which is the procuring arm of Global Fund, to do the procurement. And eventually, one of the companies that were actually disqualified because they were not authorized by a manufacturer ended up winning that tender, together with another firm called A to Z Textile Mills Limited. So those were the eventual winners, but that was after the termination of the recommendation by the technical committee of KEMSA.
So, just to clarify to the Senate, a company which had been disqualified by KEMSA ended up being the supplier.
That is correct.
Following the process which was undertaken by Global Fund.
That is correct.
Okay. What became of the bid bond?
Well, when we were investigating this, when the investigation was ongoing, we collected all the bid bonds of the firms that actually bidded, so that not only the bid bonds, but all the documents that related to the tender, so that we could evaluate and record statements. Now, the one that had issues was this one for Shobika. But when the tender was terminated, ordinarily, there would be no need to hold onto tenders, onto documents submitted by the tenderers, and they're usually returned. But for this particular one, because it was a questioned document, the CEO of KEMSA wrote to the ESCC requesting for that document to be handed over. And eventually we did hand over the document to him after recommending disciplinary action against all the officers who were involved in the tendering process, starting with the CEO, the technical committee members, the head of procurement entity. For this particular document, we have a certified copy, which we collected in case there would be need to reopen the investigation, because there could have been other offenses that could come out of the investigation.
Did you hand over the bid bonds for the other companies which had participated in this?
They were returned to KEMSA.
They were returned to KEMSA. Let's go to the second issue, which was identified in your invite, and probably we should start with the third one, which relates to conflict of interest by state officers and public officers. You are a long-serving officer of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I suppose you are familiar with conflict of interest in terms of the constitutional, statutory, and regulatory procedures. Would you appraise the Senate on that aspect?
Okay, thank you. So conflict of interest is actually addressed under Section 16 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, and it clearly states that a state officer or a public officer shall use the best efforts to avoid being in a situation where personal interests conflict or appear to conflict with the state officers or public officers' official duties. Now, when we talk of personal interest, we look at Section 6, which explains or rather indicates that personal interest includes interest of spouse, child, business associates, agents, or any other matter in which the state officer or public officer has a direct or indirect pecuniary interest. Basically, in practice, what happens is we also have the regulation, which is the subsidiary law of that particular act. If we look at the conflict of interest, that particular part 3 of the leadership and integrity regulations clearly specifies how conflict of interest are supposed to be dealt with by public officers.
And in summary, how are state officers to deal with questions of conflict?
All public institutions are actually required to maintain a conflict of interest registers, which can be inspected by individuals upon application. That is the starting point. If, for example, a public officer or a state officer feels that he is conflicted, he is supposed to declare the conflict in that particular register. And you know, the commission also has a role in that the commission is actually mandated to enforce and implement the Leadership and Integrity Act together with the regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmood. And did you say, did I hear you correctly say that conflict of interest extends to children, spouses, and business associates? Did I hear you correctly?
That is correct. That is subsection 6, section 16.
Let's go to the third issue in view of time, which is in relation to gifts.
Okay, gifts. If you look at section 14 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, together with section 5 of the regulations of the same act, it is clearly indicated that gifts received by a public officer is a donation to the state. That is what Regulation 5 indicates. If you go down there, you'll also see that a state officer or public officer who receives a gift whose value exceeds 20,000 Kenya shillings shall, within 48 hours of reporting to the office, surrender it to the public entity in which the officer is employed. It also goes further in subsection 4 to indicate that a state officer or a public officer who receives a gift in terms of this regulation shall, irrespective of the monetary value of the gift, declare the gift received to public entity which the public officer represents. Finally,
all gifts are supposed to be declared regardless of its monetary value.
Yeah, maybe, yes, that is correct. But what I maybe should have mentioned is that public officers and state officers are barred to receive any monetary gift. So here we are dealing with gifts that are not non-monetary. For monetary, they are barred, or rather we are barred from receiving any monetary gift. But yeah, so this.
And in the same manner, with respect to conflict of interest, we have a register of conflict of interest. Do we have a register of gifts?
Yes, we have a register of benefits in each and every public agency where officers who receive gifts are supposed to declare immediately, and we have indicated in 48 hours. And what I would also wish to mention is that
what is the role of the Commission in relation to gifts?
Okay. Yeah, now if you look at subsection 9 of the regulations, you will see that if a public entity shall, at the close of every financial year, furnish the Commission with a report specifying, and you know, all the gifts, any gift the entity intends to dispose of, all that. And then subsection 3, of course, talks about report. The report under paragraph 1 shall be submitted to the Commission within 30 days after the close of the financial year.
So just so that we can close on that, every financial year, the Commission is supposed to receive the registers of gifts from all state entities.
That is correct.
For your record.
Yeah.
Have you received the register of gifts from the office of the Deputy President?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge. That will be all, Mr. Speaker.
Counsel for the Deputy President, you may now proceed to cross-examine the witness.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll be very brief with you. You did receive the summons this morning, yes?
I received the summons yesterday afternoon.
And you had come and testify in respect to what aspect in the motion of impeachment?
There were 3 items which I listed.
Kindly grab your notice of impeachment, the motion.
The motion.
Yeah, the motion of impeachment at volume 1 of the National Assembly. And as you do so, kindly again repeat or state the thematic areas you are supposed to testify in respect to.
So let me start off by looking at the summons which I received yesterday. So the first one, the investigation of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of tender, the number is given there.
Thank you. Now let's go to that particular tender. What is a grievance in the notice of motion with respect to that tender? What is the mover of the motion aggrieved with?
Which page?
With respect to the tender you're testifying.
Which page?
What is the mover of the motion aggrieved with in respect to this tender of KEMSA? It's a simple question. You don't need to refer.
But I need to refer to the document, isn't it? So that I can read the exact...
It's okay, you can be led by your counsel.
Yeah.
You know the motion better than the witness who's been brought to prison on a particular aspect. If you can just take him there so that
Let's go to...
we save on time.
Just tell me the page, I'll be able to...
You page 24?
Page 24.
Yes.
Page 24.
You reckon that the mover is aggrieved by indicating that the Deputy President bullied him and exerted unnecessary pressure in respect to this tender, correct?
As per the document, yes.
That is the position, correct?
That is what is captured here, but that is not part of my evidence.
That is not part of your evidence. Yeah. Does your evidence relate to the notice of motion, to the notice of impeachment before this assembly?
It does, but
is there a complaint in the notice of impeachment that relates to conflict of interest that you know of?
And so what I would really request you, let us deal with my evidence.
Yes,
don't take me to the evidence.
We are dealing with it. Is there a complaint that relates to conflict of interest in the notice of motion? If yes, kindly point it out for the assembly to note.
No, I wouldn't know because I haven't gone through the whole...
You have not gone through the motion.
The whole motion I haven't.
Is there a complaint that relates to gifts and how gifts must be dealt with?
I want to...
Do you know or you do not know, Mr. Witness?
I do not know.
You do not know?
Yes.
Now, in respect to this tender, are you aware that this Senate sat and conducted an independent investigation in that respect?
I'm not even aware.
Are you aware?
I'm only aware of the investigation ESCC conducted.
Yeah. So in respect to this motion that is before the assembly, what investigation did you conduct that relates to the gift in this assembly?
I was requested to talk about...
We are talking about the notice of impeachment before the assembly, Mr. Witness.
I'm referring to the summons that I was given by this House.
And your summons must relate to the proceedings, correct?
I'm not the originator of the summons. How would I know how it relates? I will confine myself to the summons. And there are 3 issues I was to address. One of them is gifts.
How many companies bidded in that particular process?
I think there were about 17.
There were about 17?
Yes.
Did all the bids pass?
Pass in terms of award?
Yes.
finally, the award was given to two companies.
Yes, which companies were they?
Let me get the names. Yeah, the two companies that eventually won after the Global Fund conducted their own tender.
Yes.
One is called Tianjin Yerkol International Trading Company
Mr.
Limited.
Witness, yes?
The other one is A to Z.
Do you know what led to the cancellation of the tender?
I know.
Yes, what led to the cancellation of the tender?
It was direct favorism to Shobika.
It was direct favorism to Shobika.
And you know...
Please get hold of the volume 3 of the documents by the Deputy President.
Sorry?
You get hold of volume 3.
Council, you may assist me.
Volume 3 of our bundle of documents. And as soon as you get it, you go to page 221. Volume 3, page 221, Mr. Witness.
Just a minute.
And as soon as you grab it, you go to paragraph 100.
Which page?
Page 221.
221.
Paragraph 100. Volume 3.
221, just 1 minute.
Let me assist you with my bundle because we want to save time. Page 221.
Which
Look
paragraph?
at paragraph 100.
Paragraph 100. Yes, I'm there.
Yes, paragraph 100.
I'm there.
Yes, can you read what the report indicates?
In its report, dated 25th April 2023, Global Fund noted that KEMSA had failed to apply the evaluation criteria consistently to all bidders and that none of the bidders met the minimum requirements.
So what is indicated that none of the bidders met the minimum? Requirement, yes. Let's go to page 221, 222.
Now, 2?
22. At paragraph 106.
222.
And again, read it loudly.
Notwithstanding KEMSA's reservations, in a letter dated 4th May 2023, the Acting Director of Procurement recommended termination of the process. The CEO approved, and on 5th May 2023, the termination was communicated.
What was terminated?
The process.
The process of bidding, correct?
Yes.
Why was it terminated?
Now,
paragraph 100, Mr. Witness,
no,
paragraph
Counsel,
100.
Counsel, look.
You know, I am cross-examining you.
I will only deal with my evidence. I will not deal with evidence of other institutions. The Senate is an independent institution. The ESCC
that we know
conducted its own investigation. Please ask me questions related to the investigation.
Now, after making your statement, please read the reason why the termination was actuated at paragraph 100.
If you want me just to read for the sake of it, but I'm not owning this evidence. I'm only owning the evidence by ESCC.
I didn't ask you to own it.
Witness, the council is asking you to read a certain paragraph.
Okay.
Just read it.
Guided.
Yes?
Which paragraph?
I have asked you to read paragraph 106, correct?
Yes.
About the terminations, correct?
Yes.
And I've asked you to state for the assembly the reasons why the terminations is being recommended, correct?
Yes.
And I've told you that that answer, you'll find it at page 221, paragraph 100, correct?
Correct.
And that the bidding was terminated because the bids failed to meet the minimal requirements, correct?
Correct.
And therefore, the cancellation was not as a result of your alleged favorism, correct?
That is not my evidence. My evidence is
yes, I know.
It was clear favorism.
Clear favorism.
Yeah.
Look at paragraph 226. Sorry, page 226.
226. I'm there.
Yes. Look at paragraph 136.
I'm there.
Yeah. Read paragraph 136.
In late April 2023, he learned from the Global Fund.
Who is this learning from Global Funds?
Oh, you just took me there straight.
Yeah, look at paragraph 225 so that we can get to know who is learning.
235 or 225?
Yeah, 225.
225.
That is the evidence by one Dr. Andrew Mulwa, acting CEO KEMSA, correct?
Now, 225, 125, if you...
225. Up here.
Which paragraph?
Up here.
Yeah, submissions by Dr. Andrew Mulwa, acting
Yes.
CEO.
So what is he saying now at paragraph 136?
136, in April 2023, he learned from Global Fund pre-award review report that the long-lasting insecticide nets tender was to be cancelled on account of inconsistencies in the bid evaluation.
Yes?
Yes.
So why was it cancelled?
The issue would be who caused the bid.
No, it's not who caused. We are looking at the report. What does it indicate at that paragraph, the issues of the cancellation?
Paragraph 136?
Yes.
On account of inconsistencies.
It speaks to the fact that the bid or the tender was cancelled, correct?
It does, yes.
And it speaks to the reason that it was cancelled on the basis or on the reason of inconsistency, correct?
Correct.
And therefore your testimony that was a result of favorism does not sit well with the evidence contained at paragraph 136 of the bundle, correct?
This, my evidence...
No, I just want you to limit yourself to that paragraph vis-a-vis what you stated. That the reason for the cancellation was the inconsistency, Mr. Witness, yes?
Inconsistencies, yes, but...
Thank you, let's go on.
How is the inconsistency?
Let us go to that one you shall explain in another forum, not here.
Yeah. Continue.
Let's go to paragraph 230, to page 230.
Page 230?
Yes?
Which paragraph?
230.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph G.
G, yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Can you read it out?
At the evaluation stage, the audit team established that only 2 bidders passed the preliminary evaluation and proceeded to the technical evaluation, that is bidder number 3, Tiagini and Cole International.
Which two companies passed?
As per this one, Tianjin Cole,
yes,
International,
yes,
bidder number 7,
yes,
Premier Movers Limited, contrary to evaluation committee.
Is Shobika part of those bidders?
No, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Look at look at page 231 again, paragraph J.
231.
Page 231, paragraph J.
Paragraph J, yes.
Yes, read J.
The termination of the tender complied with section 62 of the Act and Global Fund guidelines.
So the termination was lawful, correct? And it complied with the Procurement Act, correct or not correct, Mr. Witness?
Correct.
Correct. Let us look at page 246.
246.
Yes, page 246, paragraph 213.
246.
Paragraph 213.
213, yes.
Yes, what is the report indicating?
Following the cancellation of the tender at KEMSA, TNT placed an order of 10.2 million nets on wombo.org website, and procurement was subsequently done in line with the technical specifications provided by the Ministry of Health.
So the nets were eventually procured, correct or not correct?
They were eventually procured.
And it took the interventions of global funds to procure them, correct?
Correct.
And that you'll look at paragraph 215, yes?
Yes, I'm there.
Read it out.
Further, prior to the cancellation of the tender, differences arose between Global Fund team and the immediate former PS, State Department of Public Health and Professional Standards with regard to the operations and ongoing at the DNPM Ministry of Health. It was noted that these differences...
It was noted that these differences may have played a role in the final decision by Global Funds to terminate the tender processes, correct?
Correct.
Did that have anything to do with the Deputy President? According to the statement you've just read? It has nothing to do with the Deputy President. Let us now finally answer your issues at page 271.
271. Page.
Yes, and read loudly paragraph 24 and 25.
271. Paragraph
24 and 25.
The committee, that is 24, the committee observed that following the termination of the tender while there was no apparent loss of public funds.
Just read it loudly.
The committee observed that following the termination of the tender, while there was no apparent loss of public funds,
there was no apparent loss of?
Lost USD 455,589.4, approximately 70 million in procurement fees.
The report from the Senate indicates there was no loss of public funds, correct?
Let me read this paragraph again so that we are
yes,
together.
Proceed.
The committee observed that following the termination of the tender, while there was no apparent loss of public funds,
just put a full stop there. Pause. What has the committee observed?
You don't want me to finish the
sentence? Yes, I'll lead you to that other part.
Okay.
What has the committee observed?
No public funds lost.
No public funds lost. In your investigations, separate investigations that you conducted, did you arrive at the same conclusion? Did you or did you not?
There was no public funds lost.
There was no public funds lost.
Terminated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let us look at paragraph 25.
25, yes.
Yes, read it out.
The committee observed that the cancellation of the tender appeared to have been influenced by Global Fund's apparent effort to exert significant control over the procurement process from the beginning to the end.
Thank you. What occasioned the cancellation?
The cancellation of the tender appeared to have been influenced by the Global Fund's apparent effort to exert significant control over the procurement process.
Is there any evidence indicating that the deputy president was involved in that process?
No.
Was his companies involved?
No.
Was his family involved?
No.
Any evidence that you have before this assembly to that respect?
The evidence I have.
No. Any evidence that any of them were involved?
On this report? Or my evidence?
This report.
On this report, no, but my evidence, yes.
Let us go to the next paragraph, yeah? This concluded that Global Funds teams based in Geneva, Switzerland, making multiple trips to Nairobi, Kenya, at least 3 times during the relevant period, raising concerns about the autonomy and the ability of the local government. Just read it out.
That is paragraph 25?
Yes, the same paragraph.
Okay. The committee observed that cancellation of the tender appeared to have been influenced by Global Fund's apparent effort to exert significant control over the procurement process from the beginning to the end. This included Global Fund team based in Geneva, Switzerland, making multiple trips to Nairobi, Kenya, at least 3 times during the relevant period, raising concerns about the autonomy and the ability of the local government agencies.
The autonomy of the organization, correct? Let us look at paragraph 222 again. Sorry, page 222. Page 222, Mr. Witness.
222.
And while you get there, you look at paragraph 107. Page 222.
Paragraph?
107. Would you kindly read it out?
107. It is further her testimony that, I don't know whose testimony this is.
Yeah, that is a testimony of the submissions of Terry Ramathani, immediate CEO.
Okay.
Yes, you find that at page 219. Yeah, but now I'm interested in paragraph 107.
It was further her testimony that the authority had struggled to maintain its autonomy.
The authority has struggled to maintain its autonomy, yes.
Owing to the undue influence.
Owing to undue interference.
Interference by the Cabinet Secretary.
From the Cabinet Secretary for Health, yes. Post. Who was the Cabinet Secretary for Health at the time in issue?
Oh, we can check that one.
Yeah, who was? This regime has only had two cabinet secretaries.
Let me just confirm from my records here. Because she did a letter to us, so.
Council Jiro.
The name is
just hold on, witness.
This is Wafula.
Hold on, Mr. Abdi.
Yes, sir.
Council Jiro.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I thought when you're cross-examining a witness, you cross-examine on the evidence they've given. You totally abandoned his evidence.
Those are not the rule of cross-examination, Mr. Speaker, sir. I respectfully beg to differ.
The reason why the witness has difficulties.
He doesn't have difficulties in the speaker.
No, he has.
No, I am asking him to read Okay, I will be guided.
Proceed, if that's your line of argument, proceed.
Thank you for giving me the latitude. Who was the cabinet secretary at the time the bid was being cancelled?
She's Nakumicha.
Nakumicha.
Wafula.
Has the Senate found that what occasioned all these cancellations of these tenders was the loss of the autonomy of KEMSA?
I would want to confine myself to my evidence.
I know, at this time
I wouldn't
we wish
want to talk about the evidence.
Okay, then read that paragraph. Just read for me.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph 107. And I want to finish up with you.
Okay. Paragraph 107. It was further her testimony that the authority had struggled to maintain its autonomy owing to the undue interference from the Cabinet Secretary for Health. For instance, she stated that on 22nd March 2023, she received a note from the CS asking her to assist a certain Mr. Ken Ogola.
She received a note from the CS asking the CEO to assist one Ken Ogola, correct?
As per this statement, yes.
Have you seen any company associated with the Deputy President being accused of these interferences?
No.
Let's go to your bundle as I finish up, volume 8A. Any evidence from volume 8A that you've brought that links that links the Deputy President's company to the cancellation of the tender?
Yes.
Look at your paragraph, look at your letter dated 23rd September. Your letter dated 23rd September, and look at the recommendations.
Yes.
What are you recommending?
We are recommending for admin action against the KEMSA officials and the Ministry of Health officials. There is a pending issue.
It's okay. I want you to limit yourself to what I am asking in that respect.
Yes.
You are recommending administrative action to KEMSA officials.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct. But the file is
in that particular paragraph, any recommendation for the prosecution of the company in issue? In that particular paragraph?
The file is still open.
It's okay.
As per these recommendations,
you
no.
brought the documents here. We are dealing with what you have brought, not what you have in the office.
Yes.
Any recommendation in respect of that company?
No.
Thank you. Let us go to a letter dated 21st August, correct?
Of my bundles?
Of your bundles.
By who?
The EACC bundles, the one that you're just looking at. Okay. Don't leave volume 8A. You can see the letter dated 21st August, correct?
Just a minute, I get the letter. 21st August, yes.
Can you see the recommendation at page 7?
Yes.
What are you recommending?
We are recommending for the investigation established that the Chief Executive Officer at KEMSA, Terry Ramadhani, failed to ensure compliance with the procurement processes and the law, contrary to Section 44 of the PPDA Act.
That Ramadhani was in breach of the law, correct?
Correct.
A person who is in breach of the law, what happens to him or her?
There are many ways of dealing with that. We can charge.
The law sanctions that act, correct?
Exactly.
Do you know what sanction was given to Terry?
I wouldn't know, but
Do you know that she's now currently the ambassador to New Delhi?
That was not our expectation. We
I know.
Administrative action taken against the lady.
So, did any person, either the Chief Executive Officer, report to you that he has received any intimidation, harassment, bullying from the office of the Deputy President?
No.
Yeah?
No.
Did you receive any complaint?
Not to EACC.
Did you receive any complaint?
No.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Witness, finally, where do you place your evidence in these proceedings?
In these proceedings, I place my evidence on the conflict of interest bit.
Conflict of interest.
Which I said, personal interest.
It's okay that you said, and I understand the law.
Allow me to finish, please.
So show me in the notice of motion, I put it to you, that in the notice of motion, there is no charge as against the Deputy President for conflict of interest. Does that surprise you, that there is no such a charge?
It doesn't.
Thank you. No further questions.
Counsel for the National Assembly, you may re-examine the witness.
Now, Mr. Witness, only one more question. Between your statement that you have made and the Senate's report, which one do you want us to rely on? Which one? There are only two options. It's either your report or the report by the Senate. Don't give me an explanation.
I can stand by my report.
So we disregard the report by the Senate, correct?
I didn't tell you that. I didn't
So
say that.
we disregard the report by the Senate. Is that the contempt that you have for this House?
I can only stand by my evidence, which I can prove in any forum.
Has that report by the Senate indicated any investigations on the ground of favorism, conflict of interest, and gifts?
No, I haven't gone through the report, so I wouldn't want to comment.
Thank you.
Are you done?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, but you're addressing me.
Are you done?
Yes, I am done.
Take your seat.
I'm most obliged.
Mr. Speaker, I believe I had around 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Go to Council. Now, I'm afraid, Council, your time is up. However, you have 2 hours to cross-examine the Deputy President. That's where you can borrow from.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to borrow 10 minutes in respect of this witness.
Laura, proceed.
Mr. Mahmoud, do you still have the bundle of volume 3?
Yes.
Do you still have volume 3 from the, it's a bigger volume than that.
Yeah?
It's a bigger volume.
Oh.
Let me take you to page 236 of that report. Of that bundle, sorry.
$236.
236.
Yes, I'm there.
You're there?
Yes.
Go to paragraph 188 and inform the Senate.
I'm there.
What the Senate stated in that report, in that paragraph.
So 188, at the financial evaluation, the evaluation committee, the following bidders, the evaluation committee, I think there's a word missing, the following bidders for award. Item 001, that is mosquito nets treated, rectangular polythene. Number 1 is Shobika Impex Private Limited.
So bidder number 2, Shobika Impex Private Limited, was recommended for award at a price of USD 9 million.
Correct.
So there was indeed a recommendation by the evaluation committee for an award to Shobika Impex.
Correct.
And it is contained in the report of the Senate.
Correct.
Confirm also that what you've been taken through by my learned friend are the various testimonies of the witnesses who appeared before the Senate. And those testimonies ran from page 202 all the way to page 265. Is that correct?
202, yes, that's correct.
So what council has done is to give you the various contestations by the witnesses who came before the Senate. Is that correct?
Correct.
What is important is the recommendations and the observations of the Senate, which is contained in pages 266 to 274.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And allow me to just highlight 3 of the observations which were taken out by the Senate. Look at page 267.
267.
Page 267, under the rubric.
Yes. Which
in
paragraph?
regards to the tender specifications.
Which paragraph?
Page 267, title B.
Title B, in regard to the tender specifications.
The Senate picked out the tender specifications as an issue, which emerged, correct?
Correct.
Go to page 268.
I'm there.
They also picked out the issue of extension of the tender.
Yes.
And in particular, read to the Senate, paragraph 16(1). Paragraph 16(1).
The sequence of events leading to the extension appeared solicited and mischievous
as evidenced by
the following.
The Senate is saying that the extension appeared solicited and mischievous, and they then go ahead to give reasons.
Yes.
6 reasons, actually.
Sure.
Hyphenated. And then they also pick out under D the manner in which KEMSA evaluated the tender. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this report of the Senate rhymes with your observations in all material respects. Is that not so?
Correct.
At paragraph E, the Senate then discusses the process which led to cancellation. It's titled cancellation of the tender. Is that correct?
Correct.
And they say that though there was no loss of funds, KEMSA lost 70 million shillings.
Yes.
In procurement fees.
Yeah, paragraph 24. Yes.
So in all material respects, this report rhymes with the report of the ESCC.
That is correct.
And there is no reason for you to disown it. You've also been told that conflict of interest is not an issue which has been raised by the mover of the motion.
Correct.
To the best of your knowledge, does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act, Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, have a clause on conflict of interest and makes it an offense?
Yeah, it does. The Leadership and Integrity Act also does. Yeah.
I will identify to the Senate during my submissions the relevant section which is contained in the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mahmoud. And we wish to close with this witness, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. We will now move to allow honorable senators to ask questions or seek clarifications. Starting with the senator for Nairobi City County. Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, I've got 2 quick clarification questions, one from the witness and then one from the counsel who cross-examined the witness. Mr. Abdi, you have indicated to this Senate that eventually of all the 17 companies that did bid for this tender, all of them eventually got all their bid bonds and documents back. However, the witness that appeared before us, called Mr. Mulwa, indicated that on the 11th of July 2023, he received a phone call from the Deputy President to be able to come and collect the bid bond for Shobika, specifically from ESCC. I want to know, when did the other 16 companies get their bid bonds from ESCC? Did they get it at the same date that the former witness indicated that he waited for 5 hours from ESCC, or did they get them from ESCC at a variable date? Then lastly, Mr. Speaker, the counsel for the Deputy President has heavily relied on the Senate report. And if you look at page 218 all the way to page 230, it is submissions to Senate by different individuals. Council, do submissions itemized by individuals who appeared before Senate, in your best understanding, amount to Senate's...
Senator Mungatana.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Swali langu kwa mshahidi, umeelezea bunge la Senate ya kwamba wafanyikazi wa serikali hawakubaliwi kuchukua pesa kama zawadi, lakini wafanyikazi wa serikali wanakubaliwa kuchukua zawadi aina ingine. Na tena ukasema katika EACC kuna orodha ambayo mnaorodhesha kila kitu ambacho kinachukuliwa na mfanyikazi yoyote wa serikali. Tunajua kwamba makamu wa rais amekuwa mbele ya Kenya nzima, amepata ng'ombe kutoka kwa marafiki zake wa bonde la Ufa kama zawadi. Mimi nataka kukuuliza na uelezee hii bunge yetu ya Senate. Je, orodha ya yote ya hizo ng'ombe za maziwa ambazo zilipatikana, ambazo anasema aliziorodhesha? Hiyo ndio swali yangu kwako. Asante.
Senator Chesang Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have two questions that I would like to ask the Council of His Excellency the Deputy President. To tell the House, why was it the Deputy President calling the CEO of KEMSA asking for a release of the bid bond and not the CEO of Crystal Company, yet he's not an employee or a director of the said company? Number two, Mr. Speaker, I equally want to ask the Council of the Deputy President to enlighten me and prove to this House that on how the call by the Deputy President to the CEO of KEMSA pertaining a bid bond that was in process of a contract, not a conflict of interest. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to ask the Council if the Deputy President knows that he's not a regional leader, but a national leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the DPs he has not interacted with. And again, the motion that was before the House and also the National Assembly. What are you trying to drive out of that? Thank you.
Senator Joyce Korir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My question is, I wanted to know what informed the extension of time,
16 months later. When me answer your children.
Senator Sigei.
Honorable Speaker, the question I intended to ask has already been asked by my colleague, Senator Mungatana, so I do not need to waste the...
Senator Kibwana. And honorable senators, you know, know, when you're given an opportunity to seek clarification or ask a question, it is not a moment to get a TikTok clip. Please, this is a very serious matter. Proceed. Let us not embarrass this House. Proceed, Senator Hamida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Abdi, I just wanted a clarification whether EACC, when EACC conducts their investigation, are they guided by other investigations? Because through the cross-examination, I think it was vis-a-vis the parliament investigation. So I think these are two different investigations. So I wanted that clarification, whether you are guided by Parliament, because the Parliament are not experts. That's why we always bring in or loop in EACC to assist us with the investigation. Number two, would you call it a bribe if a gift is not declared, or gifts in a public office? Would you call it a bribe? Just the last one to the council. How do you cross-examine what someone came and said, but not exactly specific findings of the Senate? Because I found it a bit contradicting. Because the resolutions of the Senate is based on committees' observation and recommendations, but not investigations. Thank you.
Senator Kathuri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, mine is not to the council or to the witness, but to the remarks which has been given out here by Senator Karungo Dhango. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you heard what he said, and I do not associate myself as a senator, honorable senator, with those remarks to a witness appearing before the Senate, that please don't answer me, answer your children. Mr. Speaker, that should be expunged from the records of the Senate and from the answer, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable senators. Senator Karungo, that is unparliamentary and totally out of order. Proceed to retract that statement, failure to which the chair will rule.
Mr. Speaker, as I withdraw, this session is viewed by everybody. At home, our children too, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo, I never give you an opportunity to make a speech. Retract or you allow me to make a ruling.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I retract.
Take your seat.
I withdraw, and
Take
please answer
your
me.
seat. Take your seat, Senator Karungo, please. Senator Keroche Tabitha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And as a mother, I think I've also felt I'm hurt with Senator Karungo. But because it has been ruled, thank you. We should never, ever. I know we had a meeting, closed our meeting before we started this. And we all agreed we are going to behave. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Proceed to seek
So,
clarification.
mine is to the Abdi. My question is to the Abdi on whatever you're trying to do on the procurement irregularities. But my question is, are you doing to the others, because there are a lot of complaints on the procurement departments in all the ministries. So I hope this continues to everywhere. Thank you.
Senator Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to ask Mr. Abdi this question. In your observation, maybe in just a paragraph, what do you interpret happened about this tender from its inception, in terms of the procurement, in terms of the management of the exercise and the conclusion, as an officer whose responsibility is actually to investigate if there was any breakage of the law, and if necessary, make recommendation to the DPP. What conclusion did you reach when you were analyzing this matter? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karen Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Mulwa, before this House, implicated the Deputy President in a scandal of the 3.7 billion KEMSA deal. In your own investigation, can you corroborate what Dr. Mulwa has claimed before this House? Thank you.
Senator Tom Ojenda.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question is different. I want to ask the previous, the advocate who spoke or presented the Kenya Kwanza agreement, my learned friend, to clarify a few issues. Mr. Yes, Council, can you clarify from the agreement, the Kenya Kwanza agreement, whether there are any shares for the following counties? Please note this. This is important. Kisumu County, Siaya County, Migori County, Homa Bay County, Kitui County, Mombasa County, Vihiga County, Mandera County, Marsabit County, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, Lamu, and Nairobi County. I just want to know whether, and this is important because the legal crinkum crankum, the twists and turns in this is that you will then interpret, Council, whether the agreement violates Article 210(2)(b) of the Constitution, inclusivity, diversity, discrimination, and the obligation of the President under Article 131. Lastly, Council, please just tell us whether, in your view, the relationship between the Deputy President and the President, because you played the two clips under Kenya Kwanza, has broken down irretrievably. That will help us. Thank you.
Senator Essie Okenyure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would wish to seek more information from Mr. Abdi on was it in order for the bid bond document to be released while there was an ongoing investigation? And secondly, did EACC clear Madam Terry Ramadan as the ambassador? Thank you.
Senator Enoch Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a few things to clarify from EACC. One, did you find it necessary to record a statement from Crystal and Shobika in that probe? Because they had been mentioned. Were they entities of interest in the investigation? Secondly, has Shobika ever done any business with KEMSA or with Global Fund before the case on record? In your own investigations, did you find that? In your letter, I see you have recommended administrative action against the CEO, the acting director of procurement, and 2 procurement officers. I see no recommendation of any action, not necessarily by KEMSA, against Crystal or against Shobika. And I think that's in line with your own recommendation that in this case on record, there was no public funds lost, and eventually the bid was returned. So in your own investigation, what is that issue here? I thank you.
Senator Mofire.
I don't know whether this, Honorable Speaker, I want to know from the witness from the EACC. I've listened to his evidence, and I would want to know, on behalf of the whole House, whether the contract for mosquito nets, which was drawn out of interference, because I have captured those confessions from him. So my question is, Honorable Speaker, can he connect the company associated with the DP with the withdrawal of that contract? Number two, Honorable Speaker, I have also listened to Mr. Murwa, Dr. Murwa. One would want to know, is it normal for ordinary CEO to come and camp in your office for 5 hours?
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the witness is that we've been told by Dr. Mulwa that the people of Kenya lost money, they lost time, they lost the number of nets they were going to get, and services to people. Now, does EACC end at just saying you recommend administrative action? Now, who takes responsibility for the loss of all of that the people of Kenya did? And what responsibility is taken in respect of tinkering with the procurement in order to give it to the wrong person for it to be found not to have been correct? Honorable Speaker, one more question to Council. Now that Professor Ojenda has asked, I want to take opportunity to ask Council Macharia, you referred to the Political Parties Act, Schedule 3, as the instrument with which you allege that the shareholding, in your view, that was being spoken about is contained in the coalition government of Kenya Kwanza. Can you give us the exact provisions of Schedule 3 of the Political Parties Act that says that shareholding can be done on development projects in Kenya?
Senator Mugu. Senator Mugu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Excellency Deputy President's Counsel as to whether the Deputy President, in his own conscience, realized that this shareholding narrative is really going negative, and what did he do about it? Or he just went all the way up to where things are now without he himself realizing that it is going the wrong way?
Senator Jonyut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, just want to ask the witness, Mr. Abdi. He has stated that as per their investigation, EACC, that the closing date was moved for this tender, particular tender, was moved from the 23rd of February 2023 to 10th of March in order for the process to favor Shobika, or whose local agent was Christo. Can you clarify, Mr. Abdi, whether this extension of the tender period was due to the late delivery of bid bond, because you said that the tender was also attached to a bid bond that was late? Was the reason the late delivery of the bid bond, or the specifications of the long-lasting net from Synergist, Peronel, something like that, bauxite to pyrethroid. Exactly what was the reason? Was it late delivery of bid bond or the specification? Number two, Mr. Abdi, you have indicated that the authority did not prefer any charges against the officers of KEMSA and the PS herself. Is that the right thing that EACC was supposed to do, or it should have preferred charges against these errant, in quotes, officers? And finally, why were the companies that were eventually given the tender or awarded the tender by Global FAD, why had they initially been disqualified by KEMSA? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Lelegwe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to seek clarifications from the Advocate of the National Assembly in reference to Ground 11, which pertains to gross misconduct bullying. You have alleged that that His Excellency, the Deputy President, exerted undue pressure on officials of Kenya Medical Supplies Agency in order to secure a tender for supply of mosquito nets to Crystal Limited, a company purportedly associated with him. Now, upon reviewing the documentation provided, I have noted that 17 companies submitted bids for this tender, yet it was ultimately not awarded to any of them. Given these findings, may I inquire from you whether it will be correct to assert that this particular ground lacks sufficient substantiation, considering that no award was made in respect to the tender in question? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chimera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Three quick issues to the witness. I wish to refer the witness to page 17 of his own document. And I know he is a very serious investigator, Speaker, but the document on page 17, dated 16th July 2014, as tabled here, is so naked and so casual, and it's purportedly coming from the Pest Control and Products Board. There is no letterhead as to confirm the authenticity of this document, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how the witness intends to allow the Senate to authenticate this document. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is on his allegation on the conflict of interest on the part of the DP insofar as this tender is concerned. Is it your contention that the mere fact Crystal Kenya Limited is the local agent of one of the bidders in this tender, then that will suffice to be conflict of interest enough on the part of the DP, because the owner of that company assigns to the DP? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the witness has been cross-examined by my learned colleague, counsel for the DP, largely on contents of the Senate Standing Committee on Health report, as opposed to his own documents. Do you want it to go on record that you want to rely on that report as your evidence in chief, or should the Senate rely on your documents as tabled under volume 8A of your own documents? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Shakil Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to Mr. Abdi. How many more charges against the deputy before the EACC apart from the KEMSA? Thank you.
Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, just a quick question to Abdi of EACC. This issue of the bid bond, Mr. Speaker, listening to the former acting CEO, there's something curious about it which I want Abdi to either confirm or help us understand. That there was something peculiar. You know, Mr. Speaker, when you hear about pagination, if you know anything about tenders, you know for a fact that if there's an issue on pagination, either it's not just an issue of forgetting to page or number the pages, Mr. Speaker, but that document may either have been
added later on after the tendering process was concluded, or, Mr. Speaker, it was defective. What was the real issue according to their investigation with regards to the bid bond that was submitted by this specific company? Secondly, Mr. Speaker, what in his assessment will he say is a reading of the donor community when you have such important programs interfered with as such that the donor communities themselves end up cancelling such important programs? And what are they recommending? Finally, Mr. Speaker, is to Advocate Ndegwa Njiru. He asked the witness earlier which of the report would he, that this House believes, that of the Senate or of the EACC. I'd wish to pose the same question to him. I thank you.
Senator Murango.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika. Swali langu litaenda kwa Bwana Abdi. Kwa sababu anayehukumiwa hapa ni naibu wa rais, tungetaka kujua kwamba kwa sababu mlifanya uchunguzi, ni kesi ngapi ama kuna kesi yote ambayo EACC imepeleka mahakamani ili naibu wa rais aweze kuhukumiwa? Jambo la pili, wakati kulikuwa naibu wa rais alikuwa anachunguzwa katika bunge la kitaifa, kuna ushahidi wote ambao wewe uliwasilisha katika bunge la kitaifa? Na kama hukuwasilisha, kwa nini umeamua kuwasilisha tu nyumba la seneti na sio bunge la kitaifa? Na ya mwisho, katika zabuni ambayo ilikuwa ni ya viandarua vya mbu ambayo naibu wa rais anasemekana alihusika nayo, tungetaka tujue ya kwamba kwa sababu ile zabuni ilikuwa imeghairiwa na KEMSA, na kwa hivyo dhamana ya zabuni ambayo ni bid bond kwa kimombo ilikuwa inafaa kurudishwa, tungetaka tujue kama hiyo dhamana ya zabuni ilirudishwa ama iliitishwa, ingekuwa inasaidia naibu wa rais na nini, ama kungekuwa na manufaa gani ya kurudisha dhamana ya zabuni kama ulivyorudisha zingine 17? Hiyo ndio tungetaka kujua. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mogene.
Yes, Bwana Abdi, on this issue of irregular procurement of malaria nets with KEMSA, you know, you have given us documents that basically point to some recommendation for administrative action to be taken against a number of officers. But you know, what is of our concern today is companies associated with the DP. Can you tell us anything that you found irregular around the subject matter that concerns us this afternoon? That is the companies associated with the deputy president, Bwana acting deputy CEO. Thank you.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are lucky that the EACC is here with us. And there are serious allegations that have been raised that require investigations. Could the CEO, the deputy, confirm if indeed there are investigations taking place on your own motion on the following issues? One, on the activities of this intricate web of companies by the Deputy President, on the issue of the disinheritance of the orphans and wife of his late brother, His Excellency Nderitu Gachagua. 3, on the alleged insubordination of the President. And finally, if there are investigations on the role that His Excellency the Deputy President played in the infamous Gen Z uprising that occurred in June. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 quick questions. Like an eye of a military marksman. 1, I need clarification on Section 14 on cultural gifts. Especially some of us, when in our community, when we respect you, we give you cows. Does it qualify within the meaning of Section 14? Number two, I've seen administration action against KEMSA officials and ministry officials and KEMSA. Since you recommended administrative action, have you gotten feedback from KEMSA? And number two, did you recommend any action against companies? And finally, are there any active investigations by EACC against the person of Rigathi Gachagua or against the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutinda Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is to the Council for the National Assembly. You have presented before this House two witnesses, Mr. Abdi and the previous one, Dr. Mulwa. Dr. Mulwa before this House stated that there was no loss in regards to this procurement process. Mr. Abdi's report indicates very clearly that there was no loss of public funds. Would you tell this House, between your two witnesses, who is telling the truth, who is not telling us the truth? Secondly, EACC, as far as Crystal Limited is concerned, have you established any evidence that shows that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya benefits directly or indirectly from this particular company? And lastly, my colleague asked about the former CEO, Ramadan. You had recommended action to be taken. In your report also, you indicate that she violated Article 10. Does it end there, Mr. Abdi? Because she's now working in a different capacity. What action are you supposed to take, or do you intend to take? Do you do recommendations and not adhere to them? What's the conclusion as far as this kind of reports are concerned from your office? Mr. Speaker, I ask this because Kenyans sometimes say that the Senate does not do oversight. We do not really take action, but we recommend. And this is now the situation that we find ourselves in, that your recommendations that
Senator Montet Batuli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would wish to ask the CEO, what did the EAC, what is EAC planning to, is EAC planning to press charges on any of these companies that you say that you've investigated and found that they had interfered either through their agents with this particular tender? And if not, are you planning to do it, and when are you planning to do it?
Senator Veronica.
Just a quick clarification. Can you confirm or clarify whether these investigations have been closed by EACC in respect of this procurement at KEMSA, and whether there are any further persons of interest whom you have sanctioned or issued any notices of prosecution or anything of that sort beyond the letters that are attached to the affidavit? And in the course of your investigation, did you bother to find out what was the content of the phone calls that the acting CEO of KEMSA said was used to intimidate or cause pressure to him? Did you investigate the contents of that phone call?
Witness, you may now proceed to respond. Proceed, witness, to respond. Proceed to respond, witness. Order, Honorable senators, if you have noticed, Honorable Seki, Honorable Seki, Honorable Seki, this hearing will terminate beyond midnight today. Let the witness respond to the queries that have been sought. Thereafter, we'll go for another round. Is there any problem? Honorable Seki, you're out of order. You're out of order. And I'm asking you to leave the chamber immediately. You cannot. You cannot direct the chair on what to do. Honorable Seki, unless you apologize, I'm going to throw you out of the chamber. You cannot say the chair is biased. If you've noticed, we've been going on lots. One lot, the witness answers, then I go for another lot. Honorable Seki, unless you apologize, I rule you out of order, and I'm going to throw you out. Proceed. You either apologize or I throw you out. Honorable Seki, you apologize or I throw you out.
You know, you as a speaker, I have come to your desk. I have a representation of Kajiado people. I have a right to speak in this assembly.
Just
you should
like
not
senator.
seems to be biased.
Honorable Seki, you either apologize or I'm going to rule you out of order and I'm going to throw you out.
You know, I've never stood on.
Order, honorable senators, order.
Let me just apologize.
Of course, but that's how. Honorable Seki, I have not heard the apology. Honorable Seki, you either proceed to apologize to the chair or you exit the chamber. Proceed. The floor is yours, Honorable Seki.
I apologize.
Take your seat. Now, Honorable Seki, Honorable Chute, and Honorable Omtata, you're totally out of order, pursuant to Standing Order 121, and I'm cautioning you. The first caution for the day. Honorable Chute, every senator here is elected to represent their people. If you notice from yesterday, we are going with lots. There is no senator who is more important than the other. Proceed, witness.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I may not have captured the exact names of the Honorable Senators, but I will deal with the questions as they were asked. So the first question was to do with when did the other companies get back their documents and the dates the companies got their documents. I'm not sure of the exact date when these documents were returned, but procedurally, we only focus mainly on the company that we are investigating either for procurement irregularities or certain issues. Like, for example, in this particular case, Shobika was the special company that we were looking at, and that was the reason why that particular one was identified, because the bid document actually had challenges, as I had indicated in my evidence in chief. Then we come to Honorable Mungatana, issues of gifts and the cows. Now, as I had indicated, gifts that are of value of more than 20,000 shillings are supposed to be handed in and declared by all public officers, including state officers. For this specific matter, we have not investigated as to the existence of the material, cows that are in this particular issue. But if indeed cows have been donated to any public officer, those donations are supposed to be donated to the state. And the officer within 48 hours is supposed to hand over that donation to the institution that employs him. So that is my take on that. Then we had the issue of extension of time for the bid bond. Now, as I had indicated previously, the closing date for this particular tender was supposed to be on 23rd February. Bid bonds are supposed to be attached, or they're supposed to be part of the bid document, the tender document. In this particular case, the bid bond was hand-delivered to the CEO in her office when the tender documents were already inserted in the respective tender boxes. So for that reason, extension had to be found in order to have that document be part of the tender document of that particular company, which is Shobika. So that led to the extension, and that was instigated by the permanent secretary, who did a letter, which is in our documents, directing the CEO of KEMSA to extend the date of closure of the tender from 23rd February to 10th March. Now, that is the issue which made the bid bond, the date of extension to be extended, the date of closure to be extended. Now, let me come to investigations by various bodies created by the Constitution. Now, investigations will either be in terms of course, each institution has its own mandate as far as the Constitution or the legislation or the statute that created it is concerned. Now, when it comes to criminal investigation, and specifically issues to do with leadership and integrity, issues to do with corruption, that responsibility lies with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, other institutions, other constitutional bodies can do their own investigation, but they will if, for example, they are recommending for criminal charges, those recommendations have to be made to the respective institution that is mandated to charge people or to investigate criminal cases, like the DCI or the ESCC. So it depends on the mandate of the institution and what is the focus of that particular investigation. But for example, if it is the PPDA, the Public Procurement and Disposal Authority, they do not have powers to charge people in court, or rather to recommend to the DPP to have people charged in court. What do? They have to do a recommendation to either the DCI or to the ESCC to investigate the criminality of that particular issue. So I just want to indicate that it depends on the institution and the mandate of that institution. But when it comes to criminal investigations, there are specific institutions that are mandated to conduct criminal investigations. Issues to do with the declaration of gifts, I think that one I addressed in my earlier submission, that gifts that are more than 20,000 are declarable, and they have to be entered in the registers. And after the end of every financial year, the institution has to actually declare to the ESCC of the existence of that gift. Now, the issue of what was our finding or our conclusion when you look at the whole matter and our perception, or rather, what would be our conclusion that we reached. Now, when you look at this particular tender, first, it is an international tender that was floated as an open tender to international companies. Companies bidded, but there is a specific company that has a local agent here, which is Shobika, that did not conform to certain procurement requirements as per the tender document. Because when tenders are floated, that tender has got specific instructions or directions to the people who are bidding. If, for example, you are supposed to do, if you are supposed to do pagination, it has to be indicated there. If you have to do, for example, in ink, it has to be there. So anything that goes outside what was provided for in the tender document is actually considered as irregular. And of course, the disqualification should apply. So this one, it was a tender that was badly handled, and I wouldn't want to indicate why it was handled that way, but from the look of it, there must have been some pressure somewhere. That is my own view as an investigator, because when you see procurement officers deliberately going out of the requirements, because they know the law, there are only two conclusions that you can make. One, they were bribed. Two, there was an influence that was coming from other quarters. Mainly, those are the two reasons from our experience. So that is my conclusion. I wouldn't want to delve into the conclusion of Dr. Mulwa, because he gave evidence before this House, Honorable House, and his evidence is there. Now, the issue of Terry Ramadan and her status, I think ours was, and whether we actually received feedback. As seen in our documents, we did a letter to the, on Terry Ramadan, let me refer to the documents. We did to the chairman, the chairperson of the board of directors of KEMSA. And we gave him the reasons why we think, or it was our view, that action should be taken, disciplinary action should be taken against this particular officer. As to why she's still in the public service, I wouldn't want to go there, because our responsibility, when it comes to administrative action, we tell the institution to take the disciplinary action.
Order, Senator Newton.
We do not have the powers
Senator
to compel,
Fernandez, take your seat.
for example, the PS, sorry.
Proceed, Abdi.
Thank you.
Mr. Abdi.
So we do not have the powers to compel the chairperson of, we don't have the compellence powers as far as administrative action is concerned. So I want to leave that for the honorable members to decide what to do with that. So I move on. Then the issue of reading of the donor community and what our view is. You know, if you may allow me, Honorable Speaker and the members, the medical, or rather the health sector, has faced serious challenges of corruption throughout this period. Throughout the period that I remember working at the ESCC, it is an area where a lot of donors are actually almost giving up in supporting our programs. And that has a serious repercussion. Because first, let's understand.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, in the past, with tremendous respect, with all the other witnesses, you have been indicating how much time they have to respond. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and my good friend here, the witness, you did not indicate how much time this honorable House is giving him to respond.
Thank you so much, Senior Counsel. That was courtesy of my good friend, Senator Seki. Now, witness, ordinarily we've been given 10 minutes to respond to clarifications sought and questions. So far, you have done 4 minutes and 13 seconds. You have 5 minutes and 47 seconds to conclude.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So that one I've dealt with. So the issue was that was also raised is which report do we stand by? As ESCC, we did an investigation and we submitted our report, the findings of the report to this committee, to this Honorable House, and that is the report we will always stand by and defend. The other issue that was raised was whether we had any case that we have investigated against the DPP and whether we have proposed charges or anything like that. That is, we have not investigated the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. We have not investigated him for any criminal matter in the past. That is our position. Now, there was also the National Assembly hearing. Why we did not attend the National Assembly hearing and now we are attending the Senate. We were not invited to the first hearing. Yesterday, I was served with a summons of this House, and we are simply responding to that summons. As to why we were not invited in the other one, that I don't know, and we only respond to the summons that were issued. So then, Senator Omugeni, the companies associated with the DP, we've not investigated any company that is associated with the Deputy President so far, and that is our position. Then, Honorable Senator for Kakamega County, activities that are intricate web of suspected to be corruption. On all the items, Honorable Senator, that you have told us whether we have investigated, I think there are 5. We have not, because a report has not been made to us, and it is we should not only wait for a report. We also have the powers to investigate on our own motion, but it is only after we analyze the reports as to whether they fit in within our mandate. Like, for example, if you deal with issues of inheritance, unless there's a criminal aspect on the inheritance bit, inheritance usually will be handled as a civil matter. And issues to do with intimidation, if the CEO of KEMSA had reported to us that he was actually intimidated by a state officer, we would go into it. Of course, you understand, all of us understand, how difficult it would be to open an investigation of that, that magnitude. But no complaint has been made to us. On the Gen Z uprising, also, we have no report. We know it happened, but as to the corruption bit of it, we do not have facts.
2 minutes to go.
Okay, thank you. So, gifts, I think I mentioned, I talked about it. I talked about them very clearly. Issues to do with whether we want to charge, we want to press charges against companies associated with the DP. We have not investigated. We can only recommend charges after investigation to the Director of Public Prosecution. That is our mandate. And the other one, of course, is intimidation by the CEO of KEMSA. I think I had addressed that one. Then finally is whether we want to prefer more charges or more sanctions against the persons involved and on this matter, especially on criminal culpability. That the issue of criminal culpability is still open, and we will be inviting some people probably in the near future. But as of now, we dealt with the issues of administrative action against the individuals involved. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. If I may have not addressed 1 or 2 questions, it's
very well. Now we move to the second round. Senator Mtata.
Honorable Speaker, was there any clarification for us to respond to some questions that have been put to us? Sugar is running a bit low. There are many questions.
It's running low to everybody.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Speaker, sir, to the witness from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, I would like to ask whether the Kenya Kwanza Coalition document is unconstitutional and therefore null and void to the extent that its formula for sharing executive power violates Articles 10, 27, 129, 130, and 131 of the Constitution. Number two, if that's the case, who is to blame for approving the unconstitutional coalition agreement that resulted in forming a government? Number three, can you point this Senate to any hard evidence of criminal conduct which you have unearthed in your investigations against the Deputy President? And can you distinguish whether there's a circumstance where the Deputy President, or even me as a senator, can walk into a place and be given a gift that I don't have to declare, irrespective of the amount of the gift? Because I engage officially and privately. So is there a situation whereby I can be given a gift of whatever magnitude that I don't have to declare? Thank you.
Senator Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me first of all thank Bwana Abdi for many years' service he has given to this country, and we highly respect him. I want to refer Abdi to ground number 11 and also to his documents, page 7. Ground number 11 says, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua bullied Kenya Medical Supplies Agency officials into awarding a tender for supply of mosquito nets to Crystal Limited. And in your letter on page 7, the Commission, let me read, the Commission is of the opinion that the conduct of the CEO, Terry Ramadhani, amounts to violations of leadership and integrity act, particularly section 10 and 11. Mr. Abdi, today as we speak, Terry Ramadhani is a deputy ambassador in India. And Mr. Mutuse, Honorable Mutuse, wants this house to get rid of the deputy president on the account of bullying somebody. Can you tell Kenyans, 50 million Kenyans today, as you stand there, do you want this house to impeach the president if you have already recommended some culprits to be given administrative, what do you call, action, and then you want us to impeach the president?
Senator Kamau. Githuku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to ask a question to the Deputy Chief Executive Officer. In the course of your investigation, is there anywhere that you have identified that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, who you want impeached, influenced any tender award? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And the senator was elected by the people of Kajiado. Senator Sek.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question goes to, or clarification goes to Abdi Mohammed. Mohammed, we have realized that there's a report from the SEC and a report from the Committee of Health of the Senate in regards to the, this issue of mosquito nets. I want to confirm that the contract was cancelled and the funds were not lost. I want you to demonstrate the role of this agent by the name Crystal Kenya Limited in relations to the Deputy President's office and more so Rigathi Gachagua. Thank you very much.
Senator Miraj? Okay, if you don't have any question, then log out. You may now proceed, and thereafter we'll have an opportunity for the counsel for the Deputy President to respond to the clarification sought.
Thank
5
you.
minutes. Mr.
Thank
Abdi,
you,
have 5 minutes.
Honorable Speaker. In fact, I'll take less than 5 minutes. Senator Omutata, I think he raised the issue of whether the agreement of the Kenya Kwanza document or Kenya Kwanza government document is unconstitutional. I think that one is only the courts that can actually find whether that document is unconstitutional or not. It's not within my ability or power, or rather to comment about the constitutionality or otherwise, and whether the document is null and void, and whether it contravenes certain articles of the Constitution. The second one was who is to blame for drawing unconstitutional agreements or documents. I think that is also something that can be tried in court in my view. If anybody suspects whether this document is constitutional or not, I think the best thing to do is to try it in our courts, and they will, of course, give directions on what can be done. Now, the other one was whether we have investigated any criminal conduct against the DP. I think I had indicated clearly that we have not investigated the Deputy President for any criminal culpability or any criminal case as far as EACC is concerned. Senator Chute, thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate. Now, the issue of bullying of KEMSA officers or staff, I think that came from the CEO himself. And he gave evidence in this House that will be considered by the House, whether it is something that can stand the test or not. As for Terry Ramadan, we did our bit in terms of recommending this lady to be disciplinary action be taken against her for her role in this particular procurement. But because I indicated we don't have the compellence powers to enforce disciplinary or administrative action, I leave it at that. And whether our recommendation is for the impeachment of the DP, ours was to respond to the summons that was given to us by this Honorable House. It is for the House to do, that is their job. I wouldn't want to go there. We never recommended, I don't want to go there. Then whether there was anywhere where the DP influenced any tender, no, we do not have that, and we never submitted that. All that we said is what I'm going to say in the next response, which was raised by the Honorable Senator for Kajiado County about the role of Crystal Kenya Limited and the connection between that company and the Honorable Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. From the documents that we have and which we supplied, it is clear that this company, the directors are two sons of the Deputy President. Each one of them owns 200 shares. They are the only directors of that particular company. And that is the nexus between the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, and that particular company. And that is our response as of now. So, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. That's it.
Counsel for the Deputy President, we'll give you 10 minutes, starting now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'll share my minutes with my colleague Ndegonjiro. My questions are limited to the issue of the shareholder agreements. I'll be quick. The questions were asked by my learned senior and colleague and friend, Professor Ojenda, Catherine Muma, and Senator Omtata. I'll begin with the questions by my learned senior, Mr. Ojenda, and I'll begin with the second question he asked. He asked, is the relationship between the President and the Deputy President irretrievably broken? That's not a legal question, but in my experience as a Kenyan, there is no such thing as an irretrievably broken political relationship. Members of Jubilee, a party I served as an advocate for, woke up in March 2018 to find their leader shaking hands with his opponent at Harambee House, and they subsequently found a way to work. A few months ago, the President and the Honorable former Prime Minister have found a way to work. There's no such thing as an irretrievable political relationship. Secondly, leadership constitutionally is not so much about how you feel. It is about your duty and your responsibility constitutionally. Your feelings must take a back seat to your duty to the people of Kenya. Secondly, I was asked about the counties. Now, when you look at these shareholder agreements, and again, if members will go with me to page 418, where you find the shareholder agreement between ANC, Ford Kenya, and UDA. Sorry? Oh, volume, sorry. I don't know how to increase the volume.
Council, sorry, Council, members, I'm getting a bit lost when you say UNDA. UNDA, if spelling in Swahili is UNDA.
No, UDA, sorry, I come from Mount Kenya.
United Democratic Alliance. If you use maybe the first, you first make clear.
I'm sorry.
That it is United Democratic Alliance.
Yes, I'm sorry. We use acronyms, I'm sorry. It's the United Democratic Alliance Party. The full name of Amani is Amani National Congress Party, and the full name for Ford Kenya is Ford Kenya Party. So their agreement at page 429, you will note, Professor Ojenda,